Okay.
We're up, Deep. Mm-hmm.
Hello. Okay. So, real quick, since we're gonna go on live to YouTube, if you can get on YouTube on your phone or whatever, because if we start getting comments from like, Zach and all those guys, we need to make sure we're bossing them. I'll find out. Alright. Sure.
They're bringing. I don't know what to do with him, but
Okay, here we go with the 2022 general election for Hood County. We're going to do a little bit of state, national, and we'll kind of go over a few things before we get the early voting results. We've got John with us tonight. John, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Mike. It's been a long day. It's been a long election season, and I'm glad to see we're finally getting a culmination of it.
And we've got in the studio, we've got Melanie Graff, and I guess your elephant. Does your elephant have a name?
No, we're actually trying to think of a name. So if people want to suggest names for the elephant, I think that would be good. We don't have a name yet.
Well, good. I guess he's been at some of the polls today too, right? I saw him at Pecan, I know at least.
That's what I hear. I hear he was on a Harley Davidson too earlier
good.
today.
I believe there is some pictures of proof of that, as a matter of fact.
That's what I heard.
I hope he has a motorcycle license.
Yeah, no kidding. And a helmet, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Unless he's got the insurance. But good to have you here, Melanie. And I know you did a lot of block walking for some of the school board candidates.
Yes.
And about how many houses do you think you hit?
Oh boy, probably. I would say a little over 1,000, not just for school board, but also for mayor and for Dave Eagle. I was a precinct chair for 5 years, and once a precinct chair, I think you always are. I'm not anymore, but once you learn how that works, the door knocking, it's something you keep doing.
It is. And, you know, it's kind of fun to do. I always enjoy doing it, and you kind of get a pulse of where everybody's at, the issues, what everybody's talking about, what they're concerned about. So to me, you know, you can do your mailers, which is fine, and get your signs out, but the block walking is the key.
Well, and the whole point with that, too, especially since I've been doing it for so many years, when I knock people's doors, they'll say to me, some of them say, I was waiting for when you were going to come by and give me my voter guide. So it's really all about developing that relationship with the voters. Because let's face it, that's what this is all about, is the voters.
Yep, it sure is.
And they like it when you take the time to go and talk to them personally.
And really, they're kind of getting used to it, but they should. You know, the elected officials and people campaigning, and I know you went out for, John, a lot of the Hood County Republicans. And
I sure did.
You and your wife, Kendra.
Yeah, we did a lot of door knocking over the last several weeks, and it was really encouraging. Not only to meet some new people in our precinct, but to rekindle some relationships that we made previously with door knocking. So like Melanie said, even though it's only every couple of years, people remember these relationships. They really count on, you know, kind of the informed people of the community to keep everybody informed. So yeah, the door knocking is great.
And, you know, you look at, you go to the polls and you stand out there as a candidate or an incumbent, and people walk up to you and say, hey, I remember you came to my door and you sat in my, you know, kitchen or living room. We spoke. And that to me is one of the fun things about being an elected official or running for office, where you get that connection.
People need to know that they matter.
Right.
And they matter to us. So that's what people want to know, that they matter and that they count, their opinion counts, and that they're valued. And
once again, we're waiting for the early voting results. And those should be in any time from about 7 p.m. to normally about 7:30, 7:45. And we'll give you those results as soon as we get them from Hood County. And we will be watching a couple other races throughout the state, some of the close ones, and even some national stuff. You guys comment in there if you see anything. Comment down there on YouTube if you have a specific race that you're looking at or want some information on. But Melanie, let me kind of dig in, if you don't mind, about kind of some of the school board things that have been going on, and you know, and we've heard the two biggest issues, of course, was the bond, the previous bond, and the porn books in the school libraries. So when you're out knocking and talking, are those some of the biggest issues when you talk about school boards?
They are some of the biggest issues. People are concerned about their kids, their grandkids. They're being told by some people that there are no more porn books in the library, but yet we have citizens that show up and read from the books that are in our library. So there's a lot of untruths going on in regards to that. And then as far as the bond goes, we hear a lot about that too, because of course with the inflation and the higher prices for gasoline and for food, people are hurting. And so they can't they can't afford, more taxes. And I also hear too, okay, that's great. You're going to have a great looking school building, but how much money are you spending on the education that goes on inside the
Right.
building? So yeah, those are big issues. And then some of the other things are the way that some of the current school board members treat some of the other school board members, and like changing the rules. And then of course the infamous meeting on October 17th.
And
as
we
well.
saw that play out at some of the school board meetings, which are online. You can go to YouTube and Granbury ISD and watch those for yourself. But once again, if you're just tuning in, we're looking at Trustee Place 5 for Granbury ISD, which is Billy Wimberly, John Mark Graves, and Terry Leuven. And Place 6, which is Barbara Townsend, the current school board president, and Jeff Hastings. And then Trustee Place 7, Karen Lowry, and Paula McDonald. There are definitely other races going on. Dave Eagle, Commissioner Precinct 4 for Hood County, is in a race right now with Grant Wood. And then Katie Lang, and once again, she is my wife, but she's in a race with Harold Granick. And both Harold Granick and Grant Wood are running Democrat to the Republican Katie Lang and Republican Dave Eagle.
And Melanie, I have a question for you, if you don't mind. Since you do have such history with the voters, doing block walking, how would you describe kind of the general mood of the voters that you talk to, or the attitude, or compared to other election cycles?
They're fed up. They're fed up with what's going on in their schools. They're fed up with they're fed up with incumbents who won't stand up and who don't have the courage to do the right thing. They're fed up with being lied to. They're very concerned about their kids, their grandkids, and they're very concerned about the misuse of money. It's just, it seems like a lot of the voters I talk to, they say it seems like, we're not budgeting. There is really no budget, because as long as it's the taxpayers' money, you always have just more and more of that. Just tax the people more. And the other thing too, I hear a lot too is, why is the answer to fixing education always throwing money at it? So I hear that from the voters too.
That's the big government solution to everything, isn't it?
Yep.
Money,
Doesn't
money,
sound
money.
very conservative.
Whatever the taxpayer can spend, more and more and more. And we're going to need a bond. There's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. But I hope they communicate better, and you being part of the board now, with the superintendent and everybody else, instead of saying, we're going to charge X amount to get $300 and whatever million, I would like to say, this is what we need, this is how much it costs, and this is what we're going to do. Instead of saying, we have this pot of money, we could do this, we could do that, we can build a super high school, we can build a super middle school, we can do all. I would like, and a lot of people would like to say, here's the stats, here's the students that we have, this is what we're going to need, and it's going to cost X amount.
Yeah, and we just, at the last school board meeting, we just voted $12,000 for us to attend charity events, which charity events are great, they're fine, but I really believe that if we want to go, we should be paying for that out of our own pocket, because I met with some teachers who are needing certain things, and they're not getting those certain things. So how about we pay for our own tickets if we want to go to these charity events, so that we open up some more money to get these kids what they need? There's teachers that are doing without, and they're improvising, and they're very creative, but they're also spending money out of their own pocket, and that shouldn't be. There's no excuse for that.
And I want to amplify what you just said. I just heard last week, I was talking to a voter, and they were discussing with my wife and I, as a matter of fact, how the special ed program at the school needs some kind of special lift chair, and it costs between $12,000 to $15,000, and there's no money there for these special needs kids. And when you think about, the glad handing and yucking it up with their buddies at these galas for the tune of $12,000, while the special needs kids can't get their lift chair, something's out of whack.
But I thought it's all about the kids.
Well, that's a slogan.
Because that's not really all about the kids. And the thing with the lift chair too is, if these kids are sitting in one position all day, that's terrible for them physically. So the lift chair is something that really, it's a physical need that's really needed. It's not something that they can go without. So why are we ignoring that, but then shelling out $12,000 to go to events? It's just wrong.
And if you need something like that, you've got a fund balance, and there's millions and millions of dollars in there, then that can kind of be cut away from some of that, and maybe that needs to be proposed. I don't know, but once again, if you're just tuning in, and I'll be saying this till we get the results, the polls close at 7 o'clock. It's 7:10. We're talking to Melanie Graff. She's a trustee on the school board. John's in the studio. And we also have the county race. We have County Clerk Katie Lang, Harold Granick. We have Commissioner Precinct 4, Hood County, Dave Eagle, and Grant Wood. And then we also have 2 city races, Eddie Rodriguez and Pat Abel. Those are for City Council Place 2. And for Mayor, we have Jim Jarrett and Tony Mobley. And those races are also going on. And then we have some, I believe, out in Bluffdale, and we'll keep you informed as soon as those come in. Trustees for Toller ISD and some others. Everybody else is pretty much up the chain except for Abbott, of course, Lieutenant Governor. Those are contested with both Democrat, Republican, and I believe some Libertarians. So we'll keep you updated on that also as soon as we get all the numbers that come in. Once again, we've got Melanie Graff in the studio. And if there's any questions you want to ask for Melanie, put them in the comments. We'll try to look at them. And while she's here, and I appreciate you coming in, we'll try to get those answers from you. John, do you have any stories about being out at the poll or walking? Because you were out in Pecan for quite a while, right?
Yes. We walked pretty much every major road through Pecan just in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And the response was very encouraging, which, like you said before, and I know from walking previously in my reelection campaign, that's as a campaigner on the trail, that's really your first chance to feel the pulse. Where am I at with my constituents? And I was really glad to see, it was clear our message was getting out, because so many of the people we talked to knocked on the doors, even if they weren't necessarily, a rock rib always showing up at the polls at every primary, every runoff, even if they weren't that, and we talked to them just a little bit, they had enough knowledge to where it was pretty apparent they were going to make the right decision on election night. Now, granted, when you're knocking doors, you can't really say it's anything scientific. It's anecdotal at best. Mm-hmm. But, you absolutely leave the field of door knocking with a good feeling or a bad feeling. And I'll absolutely say the times we've door knocked, it was a very good feeling. And then today at the polls, I'll say it's kind of the final chance, as the campaign winds up, to check that final pulse of what's going on. Again, I felt very encouraged today. The polls were busy. I was out at the Pecan polls all day today. They were busy. They were steady. The voters were patient. The voters didn't seem to be agitated. They were happy to be there, excited for what we think is a red wave. And I think our candidates are going to be happy at the end of the night. Granted, it's once again, all this is anecdotal, but that's the only thing we have in these kind of races, and I feel good.
Right. And I want to also thank, there were a lot of volunteers that went out and block walked with you, Melanie, yes, and a lot of people that held signs up at both the annex for early voting and then all the other polling locations, the 9 locations that we have here in Hood County. And no matter who you block walk for, Republican, Democrat, who you held a sign for, I want to thank you for being involved in the process. We definitely have different views, different opinions, different values, but this is the way the process works. And I appreciate everybody being involved in the process. And even whether you're putting out signs and, putting T-posts in or whatever, at least you're part of the process. And I like that fact.
I think one of the coolest things is I typically involve my kids in the canvassing part of the elections. And so they went block walking with me, and a lot of the voters really thought that was neat, that they were out there, and they said, what are they doing out here? And I said, well, I'm teaching them civics. I'm teaching them about their local government, so that they really enjoyed that. The voters like that. And then my kids are learning firsthand too, how our local government works. So that was neat as far as block walking went as well.
And it's always good to get kids involved, always, from the start. So that's pretty good.
Something else I think is important with getting kids involved is that, being involved in politics, it's not a hobby. It's your duty to your community, right? So to me, the earlier we can get these kids to understand that their duty to their community isn't just going to the polls every 2 years and pulling the lever. I've been saying for a while now, absolutely got to get out the vote, get out the vote, get out the vote. But voting is your entry ticket to responsible citizenship, in my opinion. And so getting those kids involved early and getting them to understand, and honestly, getting your neighbors to understand the kind of work that goes into these campaigns. Your candidate just doesn't fall out of the sky and have a winning campaign and materials and a plan, and that doesn't happen. It takes people, it takes hours, it takes effort, and even on a precinct level campaign, let alone, school board, which is countywide, the amount of work that goes into it, people need to understand it takes help. And even if it's only an hour or two here and there, people need to get involved, because these people that you want to get behind and say, man, thank you for what you're doing, because you get that. But as an elected official, and I feel like, I'm out there kind of trying to bust my tail for this party regularly. You just want some of those people that come up and tell you thank you. You want them to get involved. And so to me, I think the biggest lesson I've learned from this, or the biggest challenge I've learned from this process, this election cycle especially, is we have to get to our conservative Republican voters and find a way to get them into an on-ramp of actually getting involved in a campaign. Instead of just pulling the lever, instead of just calling themselves a Republican, get out there and make a difference in your community. Do something, even if it's just an hour or two here and there. Just do something with the campaign.
And even if it is just an hour, like one day it was just me and my kids, and then another day we had a small group. Man, you can cover so much more ground, even with just a small group. And that in and of itself is just uplifting. I mean, so much more. If you have a group of 5, you can cover so much more territory.
We talk about block walking, and, part of the, puzzle to that campaign is mailers too. And they're not necessarily needed. And it's like, if you want to advertise in the local newspaper or get on Facebook and do some ads on Facebook. But I don't live in Precinct 4, so I didn't get any Precinct 4 mailers, but throughout this campaign cycle, I did get some mailers. I got one from the Hood County Republican Party that said, from top to bottom, vote the whole ballot, take 2 to the polls. So they're putting out some good information. And then the Hood County Republican Party did endorse Terry Leuven, Jeff Hastings, Karen Lowry, Jim Jarrett, and Eddie Rodriguez in their mailer. And then I also got another mailer that was kind of the opposite, where it's Barbara Townsend, Paula McDonald, Billy Wimberly, and Tony Mobley. And this was by Hood County Forward PAC.
And who is that, and where did that come from?
Do you know who's part of that?
I do not know. But what I will say about that mailer from the Hood County Forward PAC, which sounds a lot like Hood County Forward and Progressive go hand in hand. So that's kind of anyway, the interesting thing about that mailer is, if you look at it, and I don't know, Mike, if you can show it to the camera or not, that mailer is absolutely devoid of any useful information.
It is.
It's got names and places. It doesn't say anything about the candidates, what they stand for, what they've done, nothing. It's an example of a completely vacuous political mailer, which whoever designed it, whatever.
HCF PAC. So, that's one of them. And we got some individual ones. Barbara Townsend had a mailer that came out. And like I said, this goes along with your block walking and things like that. And then you have your push cards from Terry Leuven and Karen Lowry. And I've got some more from Eddie Rodriguez and Mayor Jarrett. So there's a lot of mailers. There's a lot of block walking. There's a lot that goes into campaigning for this early voting, and then for today, which is election day, all to get to this point to see who's going to be, I guess, the winner. So, just like I said before, as far as getting involved, I want to thank all the candidates. Some acted better than others, but I want to thank all the candidates for getting involved and at least putting themselves out there. In Hood County, as far back as I can remember, the school board races until last cycle were kind of a, tag, you're up, you're next kind of thing, and there was no big election. I mean, it was kind of a done deal until lately, when people kind of started looking and saying, hey, there needs to be some changes with what's going on in schools, and we bring up the bond and we bring up the books. And to me, while I was out there at the polls, those were the 2 biggest issues with people. And it didn't bode well for the incumbents. Not saying I know the results that come out yet or not, but that was some of the things I was hearing, and I could just be in that proverbial bubble that we all have. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So we're still looking. We're still checking. It's 7:20. We've got no updates yet, and we'll keep filling you in on what we have.
What I can say about talking to the voters at the polls today is the issue, no matter what issue we talk to about the school board race, I think what they came back with, if they weren't people that already came with their minds completely made up, which surprisingly enough was actually quite a few people had open minds today, was that the school board had such as a group, failure to lead. We have emerging problems. We expect the school board to handle things like a budget and, the things that come up every year. But we also expect them to be ready for when an emergent issue takes place, for them to step up and lead in a way that supports the values in which they were elected on. And I think to the voters that I spoke to today, the biggest disappointment in the current school board is the lack of leadership in addressing an emergent issue, whatever the emergent issue is. And unfortunately, we live in a time where emergent issues are going to come. I mean, were we going to be talking about the things we talk about now in school boards 5-10 years ago? We weren't going to talk about porn books in
No.
schools 10 years ago. What are we going to be talking about next? We've joked on the show about furries and the craziness going on in other schools, but you know what? If this school board won't stand up to porn, what are they going to do when kids start showing up in funny costumes and demanding litter boxes in the bathrooms? And before people out there laugh and think I'm just making this up, these are issues that school boards
Right.
are facing right now. As close by to Granbury as Godley, Texas, there were issues with furries and litter boxes. Okay, that's only 10 miles away. So it's here, and I think the voters sense a need to change. Now, whether we got our message out enough, we're about to find out. But there's definitely an undercurrent that the leadership of the current board was a failure, and there's a lot of people that wanted some changes. You asked earlier about maybe some stories about the polling places,
Right?
And I don't want to get granular at this point. Maybe on a members only show, but
There were some stories, right?
the antics, and once again, I'm not going to name names. The antics acting like 12-year-olds, and it was the names that everyone out there who watches the show, you're going to know the names that were involved in this, and it really is pathetic. And I would hate to see the voters reward the childish, disgusting, immature behavior. I would hate to see the voters re-elect them or elect them just for that reason, pushing everything else aside, because the voters are going to be encouraging this kind of behavior. And these people interact with our students. And that's the last thing our students need, is a bunch of childish, immature acting. I mean, the things that Melanie says that she experiences, people, I can tell you from personal experience over the last 12 hours, absolutely real. Just there's some hatefulness and some heart issues over there.
Evil too.
And I hate to see it, because these are people in our community that we go to church with, we shop around, we bump into at the different club meetings, and there's no reason for it. At the end of the day, people want to say, well, we're all Republicans. We all are Republicans, but we also think differently. We're allowed to have different thoughts. And I see from our side, and I may just be rambling, Mike, and I apologize.
No,
I see
that's
from
fine.
our side,
We're still waiting on results. So keep going. Yeah.
people throw daggers at us all the time. I mean, just craziness, crazy stuff. And we just take it, and it just rolls off our backs. But the childishness level that comes from the other side, or seems to come from the other side, it's just, it really boggles the mind. And people, if you don't believe me, get involved and find out. Get involved. You'll see what's really going on out there. Because if you're looking to Facebook groups that have their own little bubbles, if you're looking to that for all your political news locally, you really have no idea what's going on. You need to get involved to find out what's going on.
Right. And it's always good to see with your own eyes, because then it opens up. And I think you went through that a little bit too, Melanie. You were, an activist for so long, and you block walked for people, and then you became a candidate, and then you became an elected official. And you've probably noticed the big difference between being an activist, walking for a candidate, and being the candidate and the elected official, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. And I like to say, after the year that I've spent on the school board, when people wonder why we have bullying in our schools, I can tell you it's because it starts at the top. I've
It does.
experienced it myself. So we're supposed to be, and that's one of the things that gets me too with this election is we're for the kids, against bullying. Well, but maybe some of these candidates should take a look in the mirror because they're bullying, and and so is that what the children are supposed to look up to?
Well, that's what they do right now, and hopefully it'll change. And if you have to mirror somebody, you don't want to mirroring. There's plenty of good teachers out there,
right?
And plenty of good administrators that they can look up to. We just need the good ones to stand up and step out.
They're scared.
Because they're
there.
scared
though.
And I understand that, but you realize going from a candidate to an elected official that it's a different responsibility, and it's placed upon you. And John, you're an elected official, and it starts out that way, and that's why you're elected. So you got to take more arrows.
You do, and you get a thicker skin, and so it's not a bad thing. And I think the hardest thing about being an elected official too is you're learning your job in front of the public, especially school board, because it's live streamed. So any little mistakes or, misspeaks or anything like that, it's all there for the public to see. And as an elected official, when that happens, a lot of times there's very little grace when we make mistakes.
Right.
So you do develop a thicker skin.
Right. And I can see that. So, it all stems from you ran, you got elected, you got a job to do, and you're doing it. And sometimes it's harder than others, but I appreciate that you're doing it, you're stepping up, but also know that you have people that back you up, a lot of people, and, we'll see what the results. It's, 7/26, and we don't have any results from early voting quite yet, but maybe you'll get some more help on the school board.
I'm sure hoping so.
Right. And
but even if I don't, I'm going to just keep doing the right thing.
Good. Just keep doing the right thing either way.
Before we move on, I want to say one more thing. My question for the incumbents is that if you think we're going away, if we lose all three of the school board races tonight, which I think is very remote, but if you think that if we lose all three of the school board races that we're just going to stop coming to school board meetings, or if we're going to stop fielding real conservative candidates, and we're not going to improve our game equally, if you think that, then you're misleading yourself. So we're not going away. This movement is gaining steam, and even if we see some minor setbacks, it's not going to change it because we actually believe this, right? We're not just mouthing some words, saying we support the party, saying we support the platform. No, that's what makes us. That's what fills us. So we're going to keep this fight going. And you know what? If one of those or two of those candidates don't make it on the board tonight, guess what? We got an election coming up in 1 year for school board. If you think for 1 second we're not going to field some more really conservative candidates, you're fooling yourself.
Yeah, it's a change from, like I said earlier, that tag, you're it, you're next, to holy cow, I have an opponent and I have to get out there and campaign. And wait a second, how did I vote? How's my record? So there's going to be a lot of things. If you keep getting challenged, your record's going to be put out there. And on the show, we like to deal with the issues and not so much the feelings and, the emotions of what's going on. We want to know what the issues are. And whenever we talk issues, the incumbents seem to switch to emotions and feeling.
Because they have to. I think they have to, because their record on the issues is not conservative for the most part. And so they have no other choice.
And that's where we try to stand. But is there anything else that you'd like to finish with, Melanie, that, we haven't talked about since we've got you live on YouTube?
Just a funny story. When I had my boys going out to block walk with me, and one of them was complaining, why do we have to do this? Why do we have to do this? And I said, this is how we fight to remain free. I said, this is what we do.
That's right.
To remain free is we get out the vote. We, make relationships with voters so that they know us. And then another story I'll share real quick that's really cool. And my kids were with me when this happened. We knocked on a door, and I had some push cards, and I dropped them. And she said, well, I'm a Democrat. But we were talking. She said, but I'm for a strong defense. And I said, well, we probably agree on more things than we disagree on. Mm-hmm. And by the end of it, she said, you were really nice. Give me that card. I'm going to vote for your people. So
Very nice.
And that was a life lesson for my kids too. So you just never know what you're going to encounter.
No, and you know, I'm reading some of the comments here. Somebody says, "Hey, John, Ryan's on. Hello from Fort Worth. Ryan and Lori." Amy Erickson said, "Thank you, Melanie, for all you do." And Aaron Ball, I love Melanie. Bless that woman. Most High God, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So you definitely have some fans out there.
Thank you.
And keep doing what you're doing. And I think you're doing a great job, so keep it up.
I would just tell the voters, keep holding me accountable. And if there's something that I need to do differently or something I need to know about, just please reach out to me. Because I serve them. I serve the voters. So.
Well, we'll do. And I think we also have Don Poe and Reen around, and maybe we can get Don Poe in here. And I know he was instrumental in helping out with your race, too.
Yes.
A lot of the races, actually.
Yes.
So they've been around. So if you see him out there, let him know.
I will.
All right.
I'll do
Thanks,
that.
Melanie.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Melanie.
Thank you.
Once again, we are looking at the results, waiting for the Hood County results to come out. We have nothing. It's 7:31. We'll keep checking. What we're going to do now, we are going to go take a quick break, and we will be back just in a couple minutes. We'll keep searching for those results, so stay tuned.
I have a story if you want to kill something
Yep.
when we first start. It's kind of funny.
Okay, we're back, and once again, we're still waiting on the results. Still nothing from Hood County website, but I know there's some stuff coming throughout the state. Looks like somebody typed in that beta was up 55%. That's going to change pretty quick. And somebody did ask how many registered voters we had here in Hood County. 48,669 registered voters. So, county this size of a little over 65,000 probably. That's really good as far as registered voters. And we'll see how many ballots were cast once we're, I guess, done with these results. But we're still waiting on early voting results, and it's 7:39. So, John, tell me a story.
Story from the campaign trail. So we were door knocking. Oh, this has probably been 4 or 5 days ago now, and I knocked on a door of house in Pecan. Lady answers, and we have a good conversation about school board, right? And she's engaging and interested, and obviously not too informed. And then her husband comes out. He steps around the door, and she very quickly kind of gets a sheepish look on her face. It's like, okay, what's about to happen? And he was like, "Yeah, we're not in those blue sharkers." And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we're just here talking about school board. And he was like, "So what do you think about that Mike Lang guy?"
Oh, man.
And I said, "I don't know. He's a good guy, Oh, when he was a rep, he didn't do anything." "Oh, okay. All right." And he's like, "Yeah, what do you think about that Nate Criswell guy?" And I said, "Nate works really hard." And he's like, he's had some run-ins. I said, I'm not really sure what you're getting at. I'm just not interested. The moral of the story of this door knocking experience was this guy was railing against Blue Shark, hating on you, hating on Nate, not realizing that the other guy who is on there all the time is knocking on his door. So he's talking bad about this show, talking bad about you and Nate, not having any idea that I'm on the show too. So how much did this guy really have a clue about what Blue Shark is, or what we stand for, or what we say? So what it basically means is when you see the haters out there, which haters, thank you for watching, just keep watching. But the haters out there, a lot of them, they know literally nothing what they're talking about. They don't even recognize a person on the show when they're railing against the show to their face.
And what I find is, they may or may not like Blue Shark, but then you'll see them on social media talking about Trump and, how conservative Trump is. But when they get to that local level, they flip. It's no longer Trump. They're more like Beto on a local level. And what this show was about and is about is taking that Trumpism and the conservativeness and the Constitution, both Texas and U.S. Constitution, and bringing it to a local level. And your perfect examples are, your Dave Eagles, your Katie Langs, your people like that, your Melanie Graffs, that take the Constitution at heart on what they're supposed to do in a constitutional republic. And, we've got Nate in the house now, Nate in the studio. Thanks for stopping by, Nate.
Hey, what's going on, Mike? You doing okay?
Doing good.
Yeah. You were just talking about how the haters, they'll think that they're conservative through and through. Listen, I voted for Trump and I did this and I did that. But when it comes down to that local level, it is so much more difficult to be a conservative, because then you're talking about saying no, right? And that's what a lot of conservatism is saying no on things, saying no to ridiculous school bonds, saying no to porn in the libraries. And you have to say no to people that you encounter on a daily basis in the grocery store, your kids playing Little League or whatever. Anybody can be conservative at the federal level because that's not in your hometown. But when you're having to say no sometimes to people in your backyard, that's when it gets a little tougher.
And it's a no, but sometimes it's like the bond. No to putting us $500 million in debt, to maybe a yes, 200 million might suffice for the growth that we need for the students in our district.
That doesn't give us one high school,
Right. that gives us, what we need moving forward. So, that's kind of the difference between the national and the local, but here on the local level, it's all about, you kind of hate to say it, but it's a microcosm of what the Democrats really are. And you got to face it. On a national level, we're Republicans. We do the same thing on a local level, and you're the extreme right.
Oh, yeah, you're the far right. I was
Yeah.
having a conversation with somebody just yesterday there at the GOP office, and they were saying how, at the local level, we have to be more guarded about the causes that we take up. At the federal level, all that money seems abstract because it's, everyone just pays your income tax and your
$1 billion
business tax.
here, $1 billion there.
It's no big deal, but you bring that down to that smaller level, that microcosm. And on that note, just like we have the rhinos up in D.C. and then the rhinos in Austin, we have rhinos here locally too. And that's what a big part of our fight is about. And I really think we're going through a political exorcism within the Hood County Republican Party, if you will, because we've had all those yellow dog Democrats left over from the 80s and 90s that switched from Democrat to Republican, so they could
Right.
stay in office or whatever, who are now being outed. And it would please me so much if that 5% of our party that, really deep down is Democrats, if they would just go ahead and move over.
Yeah, from your lips to God's ears. I found it very funny recently, and I say recently, just since the red wave to red tsunami,
Right.
stuff started occurring over the last week. I heard a commentator say, I don't know, the Republicans may have some regrets about winning this so handily and handing it to the Democrats hard because then the Democrats might not really be a functioning national party, and you'll have a bunch of moderates coming to your Republican Party and causing problems. And I thought to myself, gee, at Hood County, we've been dealing with that for cycles now. So I think we're already on the other side of that, fixing the problem, and it looks like the rest of the nation is just now about to dive into it.
Well, and Hood County's been the tip of the spear for a long time, and I think that the yellow dog Democrats that did, officially switch over to the Republican Party in the mid '90s during Clinton's second term, I think a lot of them, deep down, they just need to go. And yeah, our party would start losing. We would go from 80-20 to maybe 75-25, but we'd be a lot better off internally because we wouldn't get all the infighting. We wouldn't have precinct chairs voting against spending $5,000 to get out the vote and then trying
Right.
to make all these excuses about it. It's like, you guys are there to
Yeah.
get out the vote. Don't,
Well, one of the best things about having hopefully a red tsunami tonight is we can make Democrats Democrats again in Hood County.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
we don't have any results in. We'll get them to you as soon as we see them. I'm watching here, trying to get them live. And once we get them in, we'll kind of break up what we're talking about. But, and I've said here the last probably year on the show, we definitely have 80-20 Republicans on a national level. But it is more, I would say, 75-25, maybe even 70-30 for the local level, not the national level. And I think that pretend, your pretend I love Trump on the national level to this level is going to change, and hopefully it will over time. And like you said earlier, John, I would rather them just say they're Democrats.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, the frustrating part of being a Republican is that it sure seems like here, since we had these 3 EC members or 2 EC members that were elected that are obviously not Republicans, is that I'm tired of it's caused such dissension, or at least the appearance of dissension in the party. It's not really that the party's divided. The local party is not divided. Of all, how many ECs do we have? Like 14 or 13 or I don't even know how many. How many do we have, Nate?
There are 16 precinct chairs.
Okay, so we got 16 precinct chairs. Of those, 2 that were elected in the last cycle are a problem. They've got a couple of friends that are helping them out a little bit, but 2 are a problem out of 16. That's not division. You've got a problem in your ranks, and we're dealing with it. But it's just so frustrating to see when our movement seems to be really finally cashing in on some of the political capital we've been building, to have these, gadflies, biting at our ankles. But,
Well, and you talk about our movement gaining momentum, going back, and Mike, this, John, this. You go back just 4 years, and the conservatives barely had control of the party itself, let alone having any accurate representation at the county commission level or on the school board or on the city council. And now part of the reason the other side's been pulling their hair out so much is because we're come January, we will have a functionally conservative majority on the Hood County Commissioners Court. And based on how these early voting results get back, if they ever do, we'll see how we're doing on the school board.
We're doing for Hood County, and what, how Hood County voted for, whether it's Abbott, Dan Patrick, our local level, definitely Fox News, USA Today. They've got the national races and, what's going on in Florida and things like that. So, this is for the local, and, this Blue Shark's mainly local. And stay tuned. As soon as we get these results in, we'll get them to you. We haven't talked much about, we had Melanie on, Nate, and she talked about the school board, and we haven't talked much about the mayor race or the city council race. Of course, Mobley, Jarrett, and then Eddie Rodriguez and Abel. Do you have any thoughts on that race?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. Based on the reception from knocking on a few doors for Jim Jarrett, and based on just kind of the general attitude, and especially based on last year's smoke show that he made out of it, I don't think Mobley's got a shot. I mean, there's always a chance. I don't want to, count my eggs before they're hatched or whatever, but that mayoral race has kind of taken a back seat to what's going on at the school board, and same with the city council. Eddie Rodriguez, in a way, kind of feel sorry for him, because the other side here in the last week or so, I think seeing the writing on the wall has been saying, "Oh, Eddie, how dare you support, have those people support, and how dare you have
like
the Republican Party do a mailer,
how dare you,
mentioning you in a positive manner." And they were wanting everybody to, denounce the Republican Party. It's like no one with a half a brain is going to denounce the Republican Party. Of course, I say that. But then you had Barbara Townsend, Paula McDonald, and Billy Wimberly all give us all the middle finger by refusing to come to our...
Hang on. We got some
early
votes or early results coming in.
Okay.
Katie Lang, early voting results, 11,704 to 2,027. So that's about 81% to 19%.
Blowout.
Yep.
Dr. Feelgood is done.
Dave Eagles, 75% to 24, and Grant Wood.
Ooh, hey, Grant Wood, how's your victory party going, buddy?
And, in this race, and we can talk about it now, the Dave Eagle Grant Wood race, that was the race where the Republicans for Democrats, if you can believe that, tried to step in and get everybody to vote against Dave Eagle, who was, like I said earlier, the constitutionalist on the court up there. So that's 75%, 24%, Dave Eagle, and you can pretty much call that race two, along with Katie Lang. Great showing. 57.48%. Jim Jarrett, 42% for Mobley. That's 1,580 votes for Jarrett and 1,169 for Mobley. Eddie Rodriguez, 72.8%, 27 for Pat Abel. And that race is pretty well. We knew that was coming. But Jim Jarrett sitting at 57.48% early voting. And these are going to be mail-in ballots, too, up until a certain date. Let's get down to school board. Trustee place, we've got Billy Wimberly at 51%, and John McGraves at 18%, and Terry Leuven at 30%. So that's going to be a big mark to get. Looks like Billy Wimberly may end up. Now, this is a plurality race, right?
Yeah, it's a plurality race, so it looks like Wimberly's got that one sewn up.
Yep. And then Barbara Townsend, Jeff Hastings, 63% to 36%. And then Karen Lowry, we have 56.9 to 43% for Paula McDonald. That's 66,638 for Karen and 5,017 for Paula.
Looks like Karen's got that one sewn up too.
So it looks like I don't see anybody coming back from 30% to 51 on Billy Wimberly. So it looks pretty good for Billy Wimberly, Barbara Townsend, and Karen Lowry right now.
Yeah, and before anybody gets discouraged, I'm glad that this is going on live here. The thing for the conservatives to remember is that going into this, they did not have accurate representation in any one of those three. And like every other election cycle the last few years, we just gained more ground. We went from having one conservative on the school board to now two. So that is something to celebrate.
It's building momentum. Politics is about momentum. Very rarely do you have a blind flip, which it does happen, and this is an election cycle that probably it could happen. But generally speaking, you win politics by slogging it out cycle after cycle after cycle. So it's still a win, and I'm looking forward to it.
And if you look at, we'll go to some of the state races real quick. Wayne Christian over Luke Warford. Wayne Christian's at 84%. Now, folks, the state races, this is just Hood County. They've got, the entire state to do, 254 counties. Sid Miller over Susan Hayes, 84%, almost 85% for Ag Commissioner. Land Office, Buckingham here, 85%. Over Jay Kleberg, which is 14%. Glenn Hager, 85%. So your Republicans, Ken Paxton, 81%. Dan Patrick, 81%. And Abbott, 84%. So were the state races going pretty good, as they normally do here in Hood County. And let's go back down to the local races. I think he pretty much... it stands as is. Harold Granick and Grant Wood are, of course, the Democrats in a Republican town. Almost 81% for Katie, 19% for Harold Granick, 75% for Dave Eagle, 24.89 for Grant Wood.
And real quick on the Katie, first off, congrats to Katie. I think that pretty much wraps it up. And that goes to show you that Hood County is not quite ready for a Democrat yet. And for Grant Wood to be out campaigning the way that he has been, and it does get a little personal because, he was making fun of, where Dave Eagle lives and all this stuff and just acting like, in general, a jerk. And I'm trying to be nice here, but he was acting like a jerk. He got what he deserved, and that was a total ass whooping tonight.
Well, you look at... we could take Katie Lang's race and Harold Granick, and you're looking at, 80-20, pretty much, 81-19. And then you take Grant Wood and Dave Eagle. Now that's, Katie's race is countywide. The other one is, precinct 4. But you're looking at 4%, 4.8% difference if you kind of try to measure them out. And that might be the difference between the old, Republicans for Democrats that tried to step in.
Yeah, and Grant, to his credit, he did spend a lot of money on his campaign. It just didn't, seem to do any good. And, he did have the help from the few Republicans like, Tony Allen came out to support him. And the cool thing about that race really was that the ones that were kind of vocal, like Paul Hyde, Tony Allen, the people that came out in support of Grant Wood, are done in Republican politics as far as most of us are concerned when it comes to the Republican primary. Anybody that votes for a Democrat for any reason,
You're done.
You're done.
Yeah. And now, Tony you brought Tony up, and he lives in precinct 3, not 4. So he didn't actually vote for him.
But he was out cheerleading for him. Yeah.
And on social media and whatnot. But and I agree to that point. Anybody that goes out there and says, vote for Grant Wood over a Dave Eagle, you're voting for a Democrat, and you're voting for Democrat principles, and you're voting for somebody that wants to take your guns away. You're voting for somebody that stands for abortion, that wants to take a baby in the womb. You're standing for, so all these people that are for Grant Wood, that's his platform. Whether you want to be a Democrat or not, be a Democrat, be a Republican, but that's your platform. So that's what you're telling people as a so-called Republican to go out and do, is vote for somebody that stands for taking your guns and killing the babies in the womb.
And, also for the open borders, Grant Wood made it a point to go up to the commissioner's court when they were looking at sending the letter down to Abbott asking him to declare an invasion on the southern border. Grant Wood gets up there and talks about how they don't need to be doing this and blah, blah, blah. It's like, guys, you know, for the ones of you that decided to go and stump for Grant Wood these last few months, and that goes to, several of them out there that really were just sore losers because David whooped their butt at some point in the past. Well,
that's
they got what they get.
That's a recurring theme, I hate to say, in Hood County politics, is I keep seeing that your sore loserism that happens with some candidates, where they lose an election and they can't give up the fight against the person they lost to, and it's if you look at some of these gadflies we have, that seems to almost be like what happens in Hood County when you're embarrassed in an election and you're a squish or a Democrat or a rhino, is you discover a personal vendetta for this person and you lose your mind.
And
so
we've got, and I told you we had 48,669 voters. We've got right now, not counting voting day, but election day, 14,880. So we've got about 30%, a little over 30% of the voters that have cast their ballots, which is pretty good. I mean,
do you remember, Mike, off the top of your head, what the percentage of voters were for the last off year election? Because I didn't check. Nate, did you say something?
I don't remember.
Handy in your brain?
No, not handy. No, I sure don't. I can look it up. I got a second here. And as far as the mayor's election goes, again, it looks like this will probably hold based on the turnout and, historical stuff. Looks like Jim Jarrett's going to walk away with another win over Mobley, which that now
statistically,
now makes twice that he's, lost his election for
if
mayor.
it holds up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, that does bring me a certain level of joy. And Mike, you know this, after Mobley went out and started making death threats on us earlier this year, and just in general, actually I just got an email from my attorney, and I get to sign a lease. We're going to actually double the square footage of space that I occupy in Tony Mobley's head, so I'm super excited about that.
But did you get a realtor first?
No, I don't
Property
use a realtor.
manager.
I just use a attorney. There's no reason to.
Speaking of living rent free, I've also heard in the last day of working the polls, some of those on the other side, they like universally refer to anybody who they perceive as conservative as blue sharkers. So you talk about living rent free. Keep watching. Just keep watching the show.
Keep watching.
Keep talking to each other about blue shark and how much you hate it. But you're going to keep watching, and we're just going to keep getting more popular. So thanks for that.
Let's go over for Hood County real quick. Trustee for Bluffdale ISD. You vote for 3 for the Bluffdale ISD, and we've got 3 people with 33.33 each. That's Hillary Rope, Julie Anderson, and Ryan Reed each have 1 vote.
So there must be a small sliver of Hood County somewhere that falls into Bluffdale ISD.
And then same with Tolar ISD, and it's a little bit more. So looks like Justin Deaver at 56.39% has 234 votes. Wayne Weineke, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, 118 votes at 28%. And Kimberly Miller at 15% with 63 votes. Looks like Justin Deaver will probably do pretty good in that one. And let's go over Trustee Place 7, Granbury ISD again. Karen Lowry at 56.95, 43% for Paula McDonald. That's a total of 11,655 votes in. Barbara Townsend over Jeff Hastings, 63% to 36. Now, this is early voting numbers. Don't see a drastic change coming in. And Billy Wimberly, John Mark Graves, and Terry Leuven, you're looking at 51% for Billy Wimberly, 18% for John Mark Graves, and 30% for Terry Leuven.
And real quick, while we're talking GISD, I do want to draw a clear distinction between the other side and the conservative side. Congratulations to Barbara Townsend and Billy Wimberly. It looks like you guys are going to walk away with a win tonight, so congratulations. And I sincerely hope that you do the best you can to represent the people of Hood County.
That's good. Yeah.
You know,
that's all we can
it's-
ask for, right?
That's all we can
Yep.
ask for, and it'll be interesting to see if the other side reciprocates. I don't think they will. You know, there's probably some people in a serious panic meltdown mode over Karen Lowry winning her election, but you know, maybe they will, and I hope they will. Consider that an olive branch.
And let's look quick at the mayor for the city of Toller. Matt Hutzel, 59% at 50 votes, and Don Ives, 40% at 34 votes. Statistically, depending on how many voted on election day, that may or may not be close because, you know, you're looking at, 16 votes? So
16 votes, and Toller, for the results we're seeing there, that 50 votes to 34 votes, those people would have had to drive from Toller to Granbury during early voting. And I believe, and I could be mistaken, that Toller residents historically wait till election day because,
Right.
you know, why
It's
make
there.
a trip all the way into town?
And then if you look at the council members for City of Toller, place 4, Brian Gall at 64% and Casey Brown 35.8. So that's 52 votes and 29 votes, a little bit more of a margin there. So that'll probably still be up in the air for a while. We did mention Jim Garrett, the mayor of Granbury now, against Tony Mobley, 57.8 or 48, 42.52. And there's 2,749 votes in that one. So the mayor leads by about 350 votes, somewhere in there. And Eddie Rodriguez is going to get that one at 72%. Once again, Dave Eagle at 75%, Grant Wood at 24%. Dave Eagle's going to get that, barring any shenanigans. And Katie Lang, 80%, almost 81% to Harold Granick at 19%. So we'll wait for the election day voters, but if statistics prove to be normal, and we might get anywhere between, you know, that 1% and 4% variable, there's really nobody that close to catch them. You know, we're talking about an 8 to 10%, which is very, very, very unlikely.
Yeah, it's highly unlikely. And, you know, as far as the Eddie Rodriguez's race goes, you know, again, hats off to Eddie. You know, he's managed to really make a name for himself. When he won 3 years ago against Lee Overstreet, it was by like 27 votes or something. I mean, that one was a nail biter. Came down to the wire. And now to take that, you know, from where he was at, you know, 50.4% 3 years ago, now to 72%, he's made some serious inroads with a lot of people. So, you know, congratulations, Eddie.
I think that also kind of shows that, you know, the emergence of the strengthening of the Republican Party in general. You know, the Republican Party has made some endorsements. They endorsed Eddie Rodriguez this time, and I think the voters are stepping up and they're actually getting used to his message. My hope is that the embracing that the conservatives in the party have embraced Eddie, I hope he'll embrace us back, is what I'm hoping.
And, you know, he's the council, we have it as a show in the very beginning when we first kind of took off 2 years ago. We did a lot with the city through the infrastructure problems. And things seem to have gotten better. And then Jim got in there, Mayor Jim Jarrett, and was working with City Manager Chris Kaufman. And so things hopefully will continue to get better. They'll work on the 377 corridor and other projects to help the infrastructure here in Granbury. But, you know, you take a look at the Jim Jarrett numbers at 57, almost 58%, and Eddie Rodriguez at 72.87. And that race was kind of nobody said much about it. Eddie did some mailers. Abel had some signs out. I don't know if he did any mailers, or I believe he did a mailer, a half mailer with
Mobley.
Tony Mobley, which was probably not good for doing it that way, but you got to do what you got to do. So good to see that Eddie got some good numbers, and Jim Jarrett's actually doing pretty good right now. I thought it might be a little bit tighter, but Jim Jarrett was out at the polls for a long time, you know, most of the time, early voting and election day. So good for Jim. And we're still waiting on the numbers from the vote centers coming in. But folks, I don't see a lot of these races. Like I said, the Barbara Townsend, Jeff Hastings, not going to be able to catch up probably in that one. The Karen Lowry one at 56, almost 57%. That'll be really tough.
I want to say something real quick about the Karen Lowry Paula McDonald race. Going into this race, I just looked at that race really as kind of the horse race. I thought Paula McDonald was gonna make a lot better showing against Karen. But Karen obviously got her message out, and I'll say I know that because of the doors we knocked and the people we talked to at the polls. If they were low information voters, if they really had no idea, as soon as we started talking about issues, the issues of the day, almost to a T, they'd be like, point to Karen and say, Karen Lowry, oh, I know who she is. That's who I'm voting for. And that was probably, once again, anecdotally, but probably a half dozen people over today making that connection. So her message has gotten out. Obviously, the fact that the porn in schools has been all over Fox News and all over other conservative news outlets over a while. It's obvious that message has actually connected with low information voters, and Karen's message got out just enough to where they were able to make that connection. And she looks like she's going to take it over the top, which I'm real excited that Melanie's going to have some help.
Well, and, it'll be good to get that second vote there for Melanie. Of course, I'm sure now they'll change the rules to where it does take the 3 votes to put anything on the agenda now that there's...
Why don't they just make it 4? Why don't you go ahead and make it 4 or 5? Let's just go ahead and make it 5 for an agenda item so we can have just vote in advance for everything. Before anything's even on the agenda, we'll have our vote already set.
Yeah, well, and, that's what some of them want to do, I think. And, they being the school board, does have a pretty well-established history of walking quorums, open meetings violations, other kind of violations, and honestly, I was really hoping to see all 3 of them go in and win their race, all 3 of the conservative candidates. But again, it's one of those deals where I look at this in the long term. In every cycle, we pick up seats, but we being conservatives. We've actually lost more seats to what I call attrition, like when a Courtney Gore flips over to the other side. We've lost more seats to attrition than we have elections over the last few years. So,
well, you look at Jim Jarrett, Eddie Rodriguez, of course, Dave Eagle and Katie Lang, but those 2 were going to win just by the mere fact. But the numbers they won by shows a strong conservative push in those races. And then you look at the Karen Lowry. So, you get 5 out of 7 for that. So that's not a bad deal. And, the 2 Republicans you're probably going to get anyway, but the amount of money that some of them spent to have a showing like that still shows you that Hood County still is probably a little bit more Republican than I anticipated on a local level, which is good. But we still have some numbers to come in to kind of finalize these. And you did say, I agree, congratulations to Barbara Townsend. She was out there. She did her race. She did good.
She's been in there a long time, too.
Yeah, so, I expect hopefully some good things, and we can turn this book thing and the bond thing the right way and get the right communication down with that. And having Wimberley in, which is kind of an unknown at this point, that was an open seat. So
yeah, I like to say something about that race real fast. Ever since Billy Wimberley announced, I had people, occasionally tell me, well, he's so conservative. He's so conservative. I don't see why, y'all just don't get on board. He's so conservative. Well, you know what? Mr. Wimberley, you won, okay? You get to show us now how conservative you are. Be that independent voice. I ask you to please lean on everybody on that board. Lean on Melanie. Ask her what it's like to be the new person figuring it out on your own. And I'm asking you to keep an open mind and show us how conservative you are. And you know what? 4 years from now, if you're really as conservative as everyone has said you are, and as the people, I guess, are voting to send you there, if you really are that conservative, 4 years from now, we might be backing you. But we're going to watch. Just like, people think that just because, Blue Shark has their picks, that we're sour grapes and I'll hate on it. No, we're about the message. We're about
issues.
The party.
Yep.
We're about the issues. We're about values. We're about the platform. So show us how conservative you are. Blow our socks off, please. I'd really like to see that.
Right, and there's a lot of things you can step right into really quick. So, let's look at some of the updates. And I think we've got an interview with Katie Lang coming up, and we'll check with her in just a little bit. And let's see, I don't think we have any numbers yet. So, John, what do you think about the mayor's race right now with Tony Mobley and Jim Jarrett? I know Mobley came out with some of the flyers and mailers and whatnot. Jim's been pretty consistent all the way through. What kind of message, if any, do you think that sends to the city?
My personal opinion about the mayoral race is that Jim Jarrett ran a wonderful ground game. The mayor, ever since he's become mayor, he's been out and he's been seen. He's
Most
not
definitely.
hiding from the voters.
He
He's
is
not hiding from the
full-time.
public.
Yeah.
He's doing it full time. I mean, honestly, before Jim Jarrett was mayor, I never saw. No, I take that back. I saw the previous mayor one time downtown during an event one time. Since Jim Jarrett's been mayor, I literally cannot count the number of times I've seen him out and about, talking to the people, listening. Showing that he backs not only what the city's doing, but he's putting himself out there to the voters to be given instant feedback. And I think the voters rewarded him for his transparency. Is what I think happened.
I think you're right. And previous mayor, I got along with him really good, Nin Hewlett, and he was out and about quite a bit. We had some disagreement at times, but all in all, I think he did a pretty good job with the council that he had, and but Mayor Jarrett's really kind of taken it up a notch. I think just because of where we're at in Granbury history as far as infrastructure and what we need, and I think moving forward, he's got a lot of good plans. Hopefully, Eddie Rodriguez at 74% can really start to make a showing, knowing that he's got the backing of 75% of the people, majority of the public. And
That's a huge mandate.
yeah, so I hope he takes that 75% and really does good for the city and can get behind Mayor Jarrett and help push things through with Chris Kaufman.
Yeah, I'd like to see the city shift gears from responding to problems and then having to come back and come up with a larger solution because the problem has gotten bigger before they can solve it. I want to see the city become more proactive with their solutions to the emerging problems, and that's not just the wastewater problem, but that's the traffic problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes for the county as well. To be honest with you, I want to see our leadership just more proactive with the problems that we're seeing, and I'm hoping we can build that momentum into the city government to maybe back up our county government now that we've got a court coming in January.
And that's the truth. Yeah, I think that's great too. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But once again, we have the early voting numbers in and some of the mail-in ballots, but we're still waiting for the results on Election Day. And we have Katie Lang, my wife, in the studio. And early voting's great. We got you at 80.55%, 11,704 people. And Harold Granick at 19.45%, 2,800 people voted for him. So definitely the Republicans came out to vote for you. And once again, you're above 80%. Don't know if you'll go higher or lower or what, but it's another good showing. And I know they've been trying to put you through the ringer in Commissioner's Court, but as far as the election is gone, I think you did a good job with it. You continue to do a good job for Hood County and stand up for your principles and your values. And you can see it at the polls. And can you tell me how that kind of, when you were standing out there and talking to the voters, how did that come about?
Oh, it went really well. I mean, I was out there, I was getting thumbs up, I was getting claps, I was waved to. So when I was out there on the corner with my sign, people driving by waved to me, definitely smiled, gave me very positive feedback. So I was pretty comfortable out there knowing that I had the backing of the county. And I just want to say that I really appreciate everybody that came out to vote. Voting is so important. And, even on the national level, we are at a a fight. And so to have Hood County give me so much support, I just, it's unreal. And I am so thankful. And I really appreciate everybody that came out to vote.
Well, I'd like to say, not only did you get a lot of support, but there was some, I would say, some people trying to put their fingers or toes on the scale against you here just in the last week or so. And I consider it dirty politics, what's been going on in county government against you and your office over the last, well, real badly over the last couple of weeks. But as one elected official to another elected official, I want to tell you thank you for standing up for the sovereignty of your office. It's kind of a theme that I've had issues with my office about the sovereignty of my office, and certain people in the county feeling that they needed to swerve into my elected lane. And so to have another elected official stand up and push back and do it effectively, I tell you what, it really
thank you.
It really makes me glad to see that. Thank you.
And I was standing out there today, and I have a little story to share that I had a person come up to me and just thank me for exactly what you said, being an elected official and standing up to the bullies. And, he came up to me and he's just like, I just want you to know that it is so refreshing to see that an elected official go up there and go toe-to-toe with them and make them look bad because they're not telling the truth. And, you've got the numbers, you've got everything on your side, and they're still, trying to blame you. So, it's the same old thing that I've had to deal with for years. So with these bullies, and I'm just getting fed up. So, I might have overreacted a little bit, but
well, you stand up, you stand up for what you do, and we appreciate it. You're in a good spot, in the county clerk spot, and there's a lot to do inside that, with the marriage license in 2015, and you're also part of the election commission along with the judge, tax assessor, and
we have a wonderful election administrator. I just want to give a shout out to her because she's doing such a good job. I went in and I thanked her personally today when I was standing at the polls. She has moved these lines. She's divided. She's been very organized. She's divided the lines up into two lines, so there's two going at once. This is at the annex, but she's very organized, and she's got this system down. So
from what I've seen and went through,
kudos to her.
Yeah, she did a great job for early voting, and I appreciate the job she's done. Head and shoulders above the last one.
The last few that we had, yes. And so I'm so
keep up the good work. Yep. And what was her name?
Stephanie Cooper.
Yeah. Well, good job.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
I'll echo that. In the polls at Pecan today, I'll say they move very very smoothly. Pecan votes. There's no secret to that. Pecan votes, and so there are times in the past when lines out the door can get, ridiculous. In Pecan, you can get lines out the door 30, 40 people deep, and people show up to vote in Pecan at like 6:15 in the morning, and I'm not even really being hyperbolic. So the fact that today, where we had way above an off-year election, a turnout in general for the election, but a heavy election day, the fact that I never saw more than 3 or 4 people out the door, 5 people out the door, and it was the parking lot never got overloaded. It's just it's night and day.
It's just
the difference it was.
It's smooth. It's very smooth, and Mike and I have both been in elections where we've had to wait for the results till 11 o'clock at night, if not later. And to have the kind of lines that move so fast, and even though there's a line out the door, it's because the
number of people.
The quantity of people that are coming to vote. And that's awesome. I think Hood County is great because we have had so many people come out and vote, and people that haven't voted before too. Because I've had people say, this is my first time voting, and I'm so excited, and we really need to get this red wave going, and people have woke up and they're out there.
Right, and you talk about first time voters, and you can look on social media And Faye Landum is kind of a, a structure at, in the parking lot right at the annex, and she's been there for years
Yes.
and holding signs, and she always puts out some good, things on social media about first-time voters. The young kids that, and I say kids, young adults that, this is their first election they voted in, and it's really good to see that. It's good to see young adults taking, responsibility and voting, whatever way they vote. Just go out there and vote, and hopefully they research their candidates and do what they need to do. But Faye, is a staple out there, and she always puts pictures out, and, she does a good job out there. And, you may or may not be one of her candidates out there, but it's people like Faye that go out there and support candidates and work hard. And we talked about that before, and people volunteering to walk and doing mailers and whatnot. So we appreciate everybody that wants to do that. And you talked about the turnout. We had 30.57% vote in early voting, and we're still, waiting on the election results from the 9 voting precincts. So,
And today, just being out there, I know it was a lot. I mean, it was constant. And even though there might not have been a big line out the door, it was constant. And it was just like streams of people. It's like they decided, to do it timed out. It was really kind of weird. But yes, we had, in fact, at that, where I was standing, there was just a smooth line, and it was going fast, and people were excited to come out and vote.
mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I got to hand it to them. Thank you so much for coming out to vote. And I appreciate the support that I've gotten. And it does take a village to win an election. You've got to have
Takes help, yeah.
Yeah, people behind you and people that you have relationships with, and you've gained relationships through the years of going out and knocking doors. And I think, that's kind of what's helped me is building these relationships with people that vote for you over and over and over again. And it's because I've gone out and I've talked to them. I've knocked on their doors, and they appreciate that. They
Right.
appreciate you coming out and telling people, where you're at, how you feel, what you're all about.
And for people that are new to Hood County, you see the vote totals here with Dave Eagle at 75 to 24 for Grant Wood, and Katie's at 80 to 19, or 81-19. And you'll see that in the general election. But the races here in Hood County are normally done in the primaries, right? Well, you had 4 people total in your primary, right?
Right.
And you won without a runoff at like 61 or 3%. I can't remember what it was.
Unheard of.
Unheard of.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. And I am so grateful, and thank you
that's-
so much, Hood County.
That's where your race is for, Dave Eagle had a primary, and a lot of other people did, but they were unopposed. Linda Judge, a lot of people were, but they're unopposed as far as Democrats. But I believe that people like you and Dave, the ones that are conservatives and will stand on your principles, will stand up to bullies, will just stand up, period. You will always have a Democrat. Dave probably will always have a Democrat, and those types of people will always have that.
Right.
You won't have an unopposed. And I think you had a Democrat last time, didn't you?
Yes, I did. And I won that one by
the same.
huge numbers also. So it just shows you that Hood County is very conservative. As far as I'm concerned, they've all come out to vote for me. So, and I don't have a voting voice like the commissioners do.
Or the judge. Yeah.
Right. So, that just shows you that, they're out there.
Yeah, it means a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think
So-
it's also notable that your conservatives that stand up consistently, they get a mandate from the voters. There's no question that the voters support what you, Katie, and what Dave Eagle are doing. There's no question. So all the haters online who want to make all the noise in their little echo chambers, look at the numbers. The numbers are clear. When you're a proven conservative and you stand up for yourself and you stand up for the values that you were brought into office on, you stand up for the party, you stand up for the platform, and you do it with values, and you do it with gusto, the voters are going to reward you in Hood County. So note to anybody else wants to run for office, you want to be a strong presence in this community, you got to be conservative,
Right.
number one.
Yes, you
really
do.
conservative to be lasting. because in the end, and I'm saying this honestly to maybe some of the new people being elected right now, the voters will smell out a fake. It may take them a couple of cycles, but the voters will smell out a fake.
Yep.
And that's the one thing I can say. Katie, you and Dave, the voters know you're the
Yeah.
real deal.
They know what you get. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not a one-term
Right.
elected official, and that's it. But yes, I just want to thank everyone for coming out to vote and voting for me and keeping the red wave
And keep it going, right?
Yeah, we had a lot of honking horns, and
yeah.
it was great. It was a great day. It was really fun.
Well, we're still waiting on more results to come in. Last update was about 40 minutes ago. It's now about 8:30, 8:29. So we're still waiting on election day results. But thanks for coming in. Anything you want to finish with?
I think I've said it all. I just, really, once again, thank the voters for coming out and voting for me and voting for the rest of the Republicans. It's real important to, now that that law has changed, to go down that ticket and
vote for everybody. Yep.
Yeah, vote for everyone. And they did a good job doing that.
Yeah,
So,
that's great. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, John, what do you think? We had a lot of vote totals in Pecan. The annex was going pretty good. We've got the red wave going. School board's supposed to be, nonpartisan, but we all know it is partisan.
Just so you know, the one person today that had something to say about the Republican Party endorsing in the school board race and making it more partisan was a Democrat.
Of course,
Shocker.
right? Yeah. That is a shocker, right? But it is, folks. I mean, you just say partisan, and maybe we could do a show on that later. But you look at all the teacher unions, and I'm not saying the teachers, because when you start getting involved in the unions and you go down to Austin and you go to the United, the national level throughout the United States, you look at it gets more and more and more liberal. But they're pumping in millions and tens of millions of dollars in school board races, and these are Democrat-funded operations. So, when I hear a Democrat or I hear somebody say, well, this is nonpartisan and we shouldn't have to worry about Republican, Democrat, well, then tell me why tens and millions of dollars is spent on your candidates by Democrats, and you're telling me it's nonpartisan.
Well, and here in Hood County, we've known that the nonpartisan thing is a joke for years, going back to 2016, I think, or maybe 2015 was the first time that we had a candidate, however successful or not successful at that time, start to claim a party affiliation. And it's taken the voters a little while to get used to that, but, I think they're starting to get used to it now. We're having less people pull their hair out when someone puts a Republican elephant or, says that they're Republican on their sign. And to me, it's super important that we acknowledge what party we belong to, because voters deserve to know, and we had, who was it, Rhonda Rizzofi several years ago, who, she got ran off pretty bad back 3 years ago to the day. And, she was elected as a moderate and then showed her true colors and endorsed Beto in 2018, and the voters kicked her out afterward.
Again, the voters can smell it out now. Whether you have a good enough situation with the voting, strong enough situation with the party, and whether you get your message out may not always flip it. But you don't have to look any further than the current race that we're voting on right now. A lot of previously necessarily people who were hiding maybe what they really felt about things really stepped out into the light in this election, and I'm hopeful that they'll stay in the light. People like, Paul Hyde, he came out and openly, publicly endorsing Grant Wood, the owner of our paper, the owner of Hyde Law Firm in town. Dude, embrace your Democratness. I mean, really, just embrace it, man. The Hood County needs a Democrat Party. The Republican Party will be better if you have a Democrat Party. So you and your friends get together after this election, just raise up the Democrat Party again, please.
Yeah, and going to some stuff around the state, real quick, we do have a few people watching from Williamson County.
Oh, excellent.
And
Yeah, how's that race going down there, by the way?
the state rep race right now isn't really looking so hot, but Williamson County, you know, that unlike Hood County, the state of Texas is getting a lot of people move in from California, and I mean a lot of them. And unfortunately, because of the proximity to Austin and a lot of the liberal companies that have moved to Austin the last few years, Williamson County is getting a lot of the California liberals, but then the Hood County is getting a lot of the California conservatives. I was at the party headquarters yesterday, and this guy comes in and he said, "Hey, you know, I just moved here. I don't really know much about the local scene. You know, I'm from California." And I was like, "Hey, man, you know, welcome, you know." And he said, "Oh, thank you. I'm conservative. You know, just a political refugee. You know, I got tired of watching my state be destroyed by leftist policies and work in DFW. And when I was looking for somewhere to move, you know, I start typing in Hood County politics, and I see all this great stuff that you guys have done the last few years." And he said, "That's where I wanted to be."
Yep, I have a new California resident just a couple of doors down from me. He's more conservative than a lot of people that were born here. So, you know, say what you want about people moving from California. The liberals that end up in Hood County are going to be sorely disappointed when they get here, because it's going to be like the moon for them as far as politically goes. But
I think we're getting a lot of the conservatives, you know, the northern central Californians, you know, the ones that just grew up in, you know, kind of the deep blue part of California. We're getting a lot of those political refugees, and so that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing. We're 45 minutes into the time we hit from the early voting results, and nothing really has changed. We're going to try to get Commissioner Eagle in for an interview, and we're also going to try to get a hold of Mayor Jarrett, maybe by phone if we can, and see if he can talk a little bit. I know the races aren't really over, and we have Election Day numbers to get to, but if you look at the statistics, it's going to be pretty hard for Mobley to come back. Not saying that he can't, but let's look at the numbers again. Jim Jarrett, 57.48% at 1,580 votes, 42.52% for Mobley at 1,169 votes. It can be done. Not that, you know, it's over by any means at this point, but it'd be really tough.
Yeah, I think it would be real tough. And, you know, just a second ago, sorry, I got to pick this back up. We were talking about Williamson County for a minute. And as a county, you know, looking at their county-wide offices, Judge Bill Gravel is down right now, and he's a Republican. But then County Clerk Nancy Reister, you know, shout out to Nancy and Milton down there. They're awesome people. It's her husband, and she is ahead by about that much, you know. So I was talking to John about how it's been crazy to see Williamson County change so much over the last few years, and you know, it's I hope that they get a big uptick for Election Day.
How's the state rep doing out there? Have you heard?
Not so good. Yeah. You know, and
that's tough for that. Yeah.
And she went into it knowing that was going to be an uphill battle. And I texted Michelle earlier today, you know, full disclosure, she's a client of mine. And I said, hey, you know, the way that she has conducted herself, basically staying above the fray the whole time, she just put in the work. You know, she shut down her business to run for state rep. You know, and when she called me, she was talking about running for school board down there in Round Rock. And, you know, now she got redistricted and ended up running for state rep against a former colleague of yours, Boosie. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
he needs to be replaced. So,
yeah, he does. And, you know, unfortunately, during redistricting, what Williamson County and the state legislature decided to do was, okay, Democrats, we'll give you a little bigger margin in this one state rep district, but we're going to take a larger percentage in these other two. And so, you know, Michelle's got a long career ahead of her. She conducted herself really well. And she's just been grinding it out, man, knocking doors basically 5-6 days a week since last April. So, you know, good for her.
And, you know, a race that we haven't mentioned yet, and it's, you know, State Senator District 22 would be Brian Birdwell. And he did not have a Democrat, But
He had a libertarian, right?
yeah, he had a libertarian, and his is 88% to almost 12% as far as early voting, and that's a clear win. But I wouldn't be surprised sometime if there wasn't a libertarian and a Democrat coming in to some of these districts, much like Hood County. You see Dave Eagle, Katie Lang. I think you'll see more and more of the Democrats try, maybe not spend as much money, but at least see where those votes go. That's 88%. And, you know, a libertarian, and I don't know Jeremy Schroppel, but is going to get 11 to 15% normally. So it's not like a big slam or anything. But
Now that's just in Hood County. I wonder how he's fared throughout the rest of his district, because some of his district that, like, does he still have Johnson County? They have a bigger Democrat Party, right?
now, you know, with the redistricting, I think his changed up a little bit. I think he's maybe got more of Fort Worth, but it should hold true, you know, statistically, because he's going to be in a more conservative area.
I'm just wondering if that margin, instead of 11% like we see here in Hood County, which is deep red, if that doesn't, and he would pick up some Democrat votes here in Hood County just because the man's, you know, background and history. But I'm wondering if in some of the other counties, by not having that Democrat, if he would pick up all the Democrats in, say, the Waco area that I think his district runs down to.
It could be, but still, you may end up looking at an 80% instead of an 88. But who knows? I mean, that's one of the state races. Brian Birdwell, who has Hood County and has had Hood County for a long time. We get to the appeals court, and Elizabeth Kerr, 85%. So Hood County, when we talk about state races, Hood County is just a fraction or a piece of the pie for, you know, what they are. Some of them are pure state races. Some of them have, you know, different counties involved, like Brian Birdwell. But
And real quick, I did just pull up the results for Brian Birdwell district-wide.
okay,
And when you factor in the entire district, he got still 68% of the vote, but that libertarian squeezed off 31.4%. And I think,
no way.
yes.
Wait. How many? 68%?
Yeah, 68.6 to 31.4. So that libertarian,
That's Senate District 22.
the entirety of it, based on the results that are in right now.
Watch that, because that's a huge switch. 68% just a libertarian.
Yes, and where I was going with that is that libertarian, that'll really be a feather in his cap. Now, it's easy to sell that, not telling the whole story. Hey, I'm a libertarian candidate, and I squeezed off 30-something%. That
Don't even
sounds
know
great.
the guy. Yeah.
But what he'll probably not say when he's out fundraising next time is, well, there wasn't a Democrat, and, you know, that district's about 31 or 30% Democrat anyway. So.
But, you know, you're still looking at 68%. And that's still a large number. But it's not the Hood County number of 88%. So.
Yeah, and that just goes to show you how, you know, and Mike, you know this from running state races. Just because somebody wins Hood County in their state house or state senate race doesn't necessarily mean
They're
that
going to win
things
it
are
all.
going to hold up. You know, we had John Francis a couple of years ago won Hood County 60-40, but ended up losing the race because of Brown and
Probably been a
Stevens
Wells
County.
or Palapino,
Or
maybe.
Palapino, yeah. Of course, there's always some shady stuff
Yeah.
going on in Palapino. You got to
It's
keep
a
an eye on those
different county, but there are 8 of them, so you know you've got to win the majority, of course. But that's something to look at in the future, maybe in Brian Birdwell's race.
And
Would you
another-
say 60 something?
68%.
68% from 88 here in Hood County, and that's just one libertarian. And actually, libertarians tend to go anywhere from 3 to 9%. So, you know, 11% is a little bit high, but without the Democrat in there, you're right, he's going to pull a lot of Democrat votes. But keep an eye on that race for us, if you would, to see
Yeah.
how that goes.
And another race real quick, I just pulled up and this has been a huge thing statewide, Round Rock ISD, looking at their early voting results down in Williamson County. They had a slate of candidates. They actually ended up with 5 school board spots on the ballot this November. and they ran a slate of 5, and that were backed by the Republican Party and yada yada and all this stuff. And unfortunately, it looks like not a single one of that slate is gonna take it home tonight. A lot of those races got kind of crowded, and I think Round Rock ISD is in for another few years of ridiculousness. And John, you were talking about the stuff with the furries and the bathrooms and whatnot earlier. That's probably where they're headed.
Well, if it's headed that way, it's just going to activate more and more people to change it. And like you said, a lot of times, majority of the times, it doesn't change overnight. And, it takes cycles. It takes cycles running against people, getting to know their issues and where they vote. And take Hood County, for example, where we talked earlier before you were in here with Melanie, and sometimes you're faced with the aspect of you really don't know the person, nobody's paying attention, then all of a sudden you get somebody paying attention, like the books and Brain Pop and everything, and then it starts going, hey, what's going on? And then the bond comes up, then you have the books and the bond, and it's like something's going on, and then you have somebody run, like Karen ran, and Leuven ran, and Hastings ran. And then you go, uh-oh, they have opponents. And then it moves to the next cycle. Some of them may win, some of them may lose. But as an incumbent, most of the time they'll win. But then they take hits, right?
Yeah.
So they take hits, and everybody starts to watch closer and closer how they vote. And if they keep being liberal, then they're going to take more hits. And then it's going to start snowballing from there. If they get along with what they're supposed to run on or what they said they're going to run on, then they end up staying.
Yeah, and you talked about it taking cycles. I first started paying attention to GISD races 4 or 5 years ago now, and we are just now getting to where we've got a few wins under our belt. And it does take time, and especially in a local race, people want to believe that the person that their kids used to play Little League together with, or, the person that they see in the grocery store at Optimus Club or whatever, they want to believe that that person would never do anything that goes against what, the beliefs that their selves hold. And, we get into situations where sometimes that's the case. And something else, another way I was looking at this race, if you'll scroll down to where the GISD school board stuff is,
Mm-hmm.
I found it interesting that the whole time most of the voters are going through the ballot, the Republican was always listed first. So people were hitting the top choice, Republican, 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 Republican.
Right.
And I would hate to think that this could be a possibility, but it should be explored. I wonder if, because those races are technically nonpartisan, and our candidates were listed. I say our candidates, the candidates that conservatives more or less got behind. If they were listed, Leuven was listed number 3, Hastings was listed number 2, and
Paul McDonald
and Lowry was listed number 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if they got some of that fatigue inside the voting booth with just one next, because there was 22, 23 races to hit while we were in there.
Yeah, it's actually set up that way. Now, whether that gives them an extra few percentage or not, who knows? But it was set up that way for Republican, Democrat all the way down.
Yeah, and isn't that governed based on how we did in the last gubernatorial primaries, based on which party had the highest turnout in those primaries?
So there's a definite, number, intrinsic value to that, perhaps, being first on the ballot. But, in the primaries, you do a ballot draw, too. So, most people always want to be number 1 on that ballot.
Yeah, they do say that there's a little advantage there. But, Karen, she did run a solid campaign. I know that she was out knocking doors a whole bunch. And, it didn't hurt her campaign that there were a few issues with Miss McDonald. You know, the
Right.
degree, and then last time she didn't even have an opponent; she got to walk in, and then people were kind of making comments as to the way she's conducting herself in this race. Was kind of a talk amongst people.
Yeah, it was
And Paula, that is.
right. She ran a different race than Barbara did, and ran a different. Well, she was kind of out there on Facebook and doing certain things. So I don't know if that hurt her, helped her. Probably didn't help her much. I know Karen knocked a lot of doors.
A lot.
What I've heard in that race and people talking to me is, of course, the bond issue and whatnot, but there were a lot of people that couldn't get over her not being able to explain the PhD, THD, why'd you take the picture down, why'd you change it, things like that. So there was a definite internal issue that she had that the others didn't, aside from the issues.
Yeah. And, for me, that always came down to what doctor do you know that doesn't know the letters that they earned by getting their doctorate? I've never known a EdD that thought that they had a PhD. I've never known Psych D or anything else that thought that they had a different doctorate. So her excuse when she started having to explain it didn't really make any sense. But,
Yeah, I think the campaign tactic of maybe going a little bit negative as opposed to, kind of staying off, topic and being about yourself.
You talking about for Paula's race?
Yes.
Yeah.
May have had some issues. But we'll see come voting day what the numbers turn out to be total overall. When you look at it right here, it looks, 56.95% to 43%. You're looking at 1,600 votes. And like I said, I know Karen did a lot of block walking, and that same issue kept coming up with the doctorate in THD and PhD. Not saying that she's can be called doctor, not a doctor, whatever. But
you can identify as whatever you want, but when your doctorate's not recognized by the state of Texas or any higher education institution in the state, it makes me question things.
Yeah, so there's different ways that people run their campaigns, and I think as far as that goes, I think Barbara probably ran a better campaign than Paula did. And
Paula got really consumed with social media, and I see that as a pitfall for a lot of people.
Hey, hang on, here we go. We've got some more vote totals in. Let's see where it puts us at. Jim Jarrett at 58%. He went up 2%.
Awesome.
Eddie Rodriguez dropped a couple percent, 3%. Now, this is not all the vote totals yet. This is just a few. Wimberly dropped maybe 0.5%. Leuven pretty much stayed the same. Barbara Townsend looks like stayed the same. Lowry went up about 1%. So it looks like everybody's kind of moving along within about 3%. No big changes at all. Let's see where Dave Eagle. We went over Mayor Jarrett 58 to 41.95. Grant Wood at 24. Dave Eagle at 75. That hasn't changed. I think Dave went up maybe 1/3%. Katie Lang went up 0.5% to 80.99, so 81%. So we're all within about 0.5% to 3%. I don't see
difference between early voting and election
so
day.
far.
Yeah.
Not all the votes are in, but Jim, I think, was one of the biggest ones. Jim Jarrett jumped up to 58% to 41 over Mobley. Eddie Rodriguez still at 72%. That's a done deal.
Well, real quick, a little nostalgia for us here. A year and a half ago when Jim was running in that special election, when early voting results came out, and that one in city of Granbury races, you have to win a majority, and because there were 4 people, there was that chance of a runoff. And I remember the early voting results came back, and at the time, Jim Jarrett was sitting at about 48, And I was like, man, election day usually goes our way a little bit. You know, maybe we'll do this without a runoff. And he ended up with, 51 or 52.
Yeah.
And, again, Mobley, please just stop being a jerk to everybody. There's no reason to act like that. This is twice now that the voters have resoundingly rejected you. Just do better, please.
So,
Oh, and by the way, if you have that picture you snuck of us at the Republican Club, if you would send that to me, I really do want that.
so the ballot cast went from about 14,000 to 20,600. So we gained about 6,000 votes on this one. 42.45% total turnout right now.
And last gubernatorial election 4 years ago, we had 25,000 votes cast total. So I'll be interested to see if we can break that this year. I feel like we're going to. I hope we did, but a little watching stuff at the polls today, I don't think as many people came out on election day this time for some reason. I don't know if they were choosing to vote early or what, but we'll see if we can break that.
Birdwell stayed at 88%. He dropped just a tad. If you can see where he went on, statewide, that's kind of an interesting tell of at least his Senate district. But everybody else pretty much stayed the same.
So far, the Austin American Statesman, and that's where I'm pulling those numbers from, they haven't updated anything yet.
Okay.
So
So they probably will here momentarily. But, you're looking at Karen Lowry at 57.51. That's 8,715 votes to 6,440. Total of 15,155. So, everything pretty much stayed the same. So the people we talked about are, more or less going to win this. Justin, let's talk about Toller ISD real quick.
Now that Justin Deaver, that name sounds familiar. Would that be the former Commissioner Deaver's son or nephew or something?
I don't know if he's related, but I can tell you, when I was constable, I worked when James Deaver was a commissioner, and he was very helpful for me. He, as I was constable and needed some things, I would go talk to him, and he was very good on trying to get the elected officials what they wanted. Now, we may be different on some votes here and there, but he was actually and is, I believe he's a really good guy. We just don't agree a lot. But I don't know if that is any kin to James, but he's at 57%, and closest one is 27. So Justin is, looks like he's going to be in. Bluffdale ISD, where they had 1-1-1, now they have several totaling 31 people, but it looks like Julie Edwards is at 22%. Then we have another one at 22%, Curtis Hollingsworth, and then we have two at 16%. So that could be pretty close.
Yeah. Now that's just the Hood County section of
Bluffdale ISD.
So,
yeah. Same with Toller, and then of course we have Granbury ISD coming in. Toller, City of Toller, council member Brian Gulls at 68%, 31 for Casey Brown, and then Matt Hutzel at 69.9, so he's almost at 70%.
I do want to just real quick say a big congratulations to Matt Hutzel. He's the fire chief out there in Toller. He's been there for a long time, and congratulations, Mr. Mayor. I think that was a vacated seat, or the incumbent chose not to run or something. But
okay.
Looks like Toller's got a new mayor.
Yeah, it's at almost 70% with, the amount of votes that are in right now. That's going to be hard statistically to change. And once again, Mayor Jarrett for City of Granbury jumped up another couple percent. Dave Eagle jumped up about 0.5%. Katie Lang about 0.5%. So those two races, county commissioner, county clerk, have been solid and probably still will be. The school board for Granbury ISD is pretty well set. Barbara Townsend's probably going to retain her seat. And the open seat's going to be Wimberley, and Karen Lowry will be the new person to take over from Paul McDonald.
Yeah, and again, for people that didn't see it earlier, congratulations to Barbara Townsend, Billy Wimberly, and Karen Lowry. I hope you all go on to do good things.
Yeah, we're just waiting for the rest of the results to come in, and I don't see it changing, especially now, much of anything. And we're waiting. Hopefully, we'll get. We sent a message out to Dave Eagle, and let's send one out to Mayor Jarrett if he's able
Mayor
to.
Jarrett. He'll be calling in here shortly.
Okay, and maybe
So-
we can talk to him. And we had him on the show earlier, about a month or two ago, and
Which number does he need to call?
I'll give you the number off air.
Yeah,
and we can do that.
Awesome.
Because then we'll have everybody calling in for an interview, right?
Oh, hey, maybe
Yeah.
Leroy will call again.
Yeah. I tell you what, if the control room, since we're waiting on the results, if you want to throw up the graphic for us real quick, we will try to get, just here in a couple minutes, we'll try to get the mayor of Granbury, Jim Jarrett, on the phone. If you can throw that graphic up. We have Commissioner Dave Eagle in the studio with us. And Dave, it looks like we've got you at 75%. You're staying pretty true to early voting numbers. So congratulations on beating your Democrat opponent.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. I was very happy to see the results. It was not really a big surprise. I think the two Democrats that ran in this county race, maybe they were testing the waters. I'm not sure, but I cannot believe they had any thoughts about winning. I think they just wanted to see where the Democrats stand at this time.
And, we talked about it earlier on the program, and by Democrats, we definitely have the group Republicans for Democrats, which is a misnomer because they truly aren't Republicans. They're Democrats for Democrats. And that was a pretty big kind of portion against you online that fought saying, hey, look, we're Democrats, but we're for Grant Wood, or we're Republicans, but we're for Grant Wood. And it kind of holds true that maybe it was about 4.5% in your precinct is what we're looking at if you go through Katie Lang's numbers. But even if you look at 4 or 2%, those to me are true Democrats anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's, I guess when you look at, if you analyze the way my opponent ran his race, in a 70%, 60 to 70% Republican county, he did about all he could do to make a run at it. He didn't put Democrat on any of his
Nothing. Yep.
None of his literature, none of his signs, even coming up with the Republicans for him to kind of give the impression, if you just drove by, for instance, and just glanced, it would look like that he was a Republican actually. And I always thought it was interesting when I looked at those and saw his moniker that he was running with integrity. And I saw anything but integrity with that, because he was basically trying to bamboozle the voters.
Right. And we talked about that as far as, nothing on a push card, nothing on a sign as far as the word Democrat. And he had integrity on one of his pamphlets. And how can you have integrity when you don't even list the party that you're subscribing to or that you're running under? I mean, he filed definitely for Democrat, and Harold Granick did the same thing. No Democrat, no nothing on their signs. And that's the trickery of the Democrat Party going along with some of these so-called Republicans.
Well, and, to piggyback on what you said about Harold Granick's signs, if you look at it, he doesn't have the word for, so he's misleading the voters about being the incumbent. He said, Dr. Harold Granick, Hood County Clerk, and you're familiar with the election code the same way everybody here is. You got to have that word for, and then he also red washed it. It was a white background with red letters. That's how Republicans tend to do their stuff. So, he tried to pull a fast one and got waxed. And then your opponent, like you said, there's absolutely no integrity. And then the double standards throughout the entire campaign just blew me away.
Well, and yeah, you're absolutely right. Good points. And what was interesting too was, so number one, he wanted to mislead the public that he was a Democrat. That was one of his tactics, and frankly, can't blame him. And the second tactic that he used was totally go negative on me. His entire campaign was negative against me. And he made a big deal out of this alleged residence issue that was really a non-starter. I mean, that's not an issue, but he wanted to make a big deal out of it. And I don't know of any campaigns that I can think of in the last 20 years that ever got any traction off of a totally negative that I can think of.
No, and what they're trying to do is bring your negatives down because your positives are so high. And of course, Grant Wood did his thing and Harold Granick did his thing. But, when you look at your commissioner's court now, coming in January, you have an opponent, you handily beat your opponent. Nanette Samuelson did not have an opponent here in the general, a Democrat. She won in the primary. So coming in January, you'll be on the court, Nanette Samuelson, you'll have Kevin Andrews, you'll have the judge, Ron Massengill, and you'll have Jack Wilson, Precinct 3. So, the court's probably going to change to a little bit more conservative, the way we look at it with
functionally conservative.
Yeah. So maybe that'll pertain to the budget moving forward. We don't know, but when you're trying to move to a more conservative county, like you've been, and sometimes you've been voted down 4-1, 3-2. Do you see that kind of flipping to a 3-2, more conservative instead of the way it used to be?
Well, I certainly hope so.
Mm-hmm.
When I first got on the court 4 years ago, it was 4-1. And when Kevin got voted in 2 years ago, it was more closer to 3-2. And Kevin and I don't always agree,
right,
of course. And I don't expect anybody to always agree on anything.
I agree.
Yep. Yeah, I think that an elected board, there needs to be differences of opinion, and there needs to this team of 8 stuff you hear with school boards, and let's all get on the same page, to me is not the way a government should run. There should be dissension, and there should be robust debate about what should be done in any given circumstance, so that the best thing happens, the best conclusion is reached for the taxpayers. And when everybody's up there singing Kumbaya, you better watch out for your pocketbook.
Right, and we've seen that in the past, and you're right. Whether it's 4-1, 3-2, wherever it may stand, everybody's going to be a little bit different. But when it comes down to what I would say more the constitutional things, and we went through the COVID deal, and you were kind of set apart with me when I was a state rep. But when it comes to the gun issues and things like that people go, hey, that's not a commissioner's court responsibility. That's not here nor there. That might be the sheriff's responsibility. Like it or not, the citizens want to know where you, Dave Eagle, stands, or Ron Massengill, the judge, or whoever it may be, Nanette Samuelson. And those are the types of things to me that are kind of no-brainers, that it may not matter too much on the commissioner's court, but we want to know where you guys stand.
Well, and let me add to that. That was the other tactic of my opponent. He wanted to completely separate himself from national Democrat politics. The wokeness, the open borders, the porn in the school libraries, all those major issues that are really starting to resonate with conservatives in different small localities, school boards, etc. Part of his tactic was to distance himself from that and say, well, that part of the Democrat Party is not me. Yet he supports Beto, he supports Biden, and just by that act, he's part of that paradigm. And that's why I'm so big on the platform. The Republican platform gives you an idea who I am, because I try to run on the platform. The Democrats do too. They just want to say they don't.
Right. And, we talked about that earlier as far as, what actually Granick and Wood, what their party stands for. And there was a reason they didn't put Democrat on their, any of their paraphernalia. And, you're like taking away guns, killing babies in the womb, Antifa, BLM, those
transgender
stuff, so, you can try to distance yourself as much as you want, but that is the Democrat Party. And if you like that stuff, then you're a Democrat. If you don't, then you lean more towards a Republican. But I think what we really need to look at here in Hood County, being, the 80-20 on a national level Republican, we really need to look at some of the local levels. And I think over the last probably 6 to 8 years, from about 2015, 2014 on, the conservatives have really started making headway into these elections, and it doesn't happen overnight. Look at tonight. You and Katie Lang won by huge margins, and you should have, and you did. The school board, they had a tough fight for a couple of the races, and we picked up a seat. I say we. Karen Lowry picked up a seat, so it's still on the move. There's no stopping it. It's still rolling, and in your precinct, 75. We don't have all the numbers in. 75%. And you're well over 75 now, but with everything that came out against you, and you brought up residency, we brought up the Grant Wood and the no Democrat on his signs, and actually the so-called Republicans in the community that stood behind Grant Wood. There's a lot of hate towards conservatives when they stand up for morals and values. And I know you've seen it, and Katie's seen it, and I think Milton Graff has seen it. And that's something I applaud you, all you three on this, to stand up and keep standing up, because you definitely have people backing you. And it shows right here that the citizens back you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mike. And just an observation with that. You talk about these so-called Republicans that, got behind my Democrat opponent, and they still try to strut around and say they're Republicans. You don't fool me. You guys don't fool me. I know who you are. And, what we're really doing is we're upsetting the good old boy apple cart around here. And they felt like that they would rather have a Grant Wood in there to do their bidding than Dave Eagle in there calling them out for when they're not doing the right thing. And so I've said this time and again in court, maybe here on Blue Shark, but I work for you, the voter. I work for the voters in my precinct, and they looks like wanted to hire me back. Looks like they wanted to hire me back.
Overwhelmingly, they did.
And I don't work for those other people on the commissioner's court, and I don't work for anybody else in the city government or the school board. I work for the people in my precinct, and I wanted to let y'all know I appreciate you putting me back in here to give me another term to see if I can move the ball forward for conservatives.
And not only did you win this race 75-25 roughly, we're still waiting on the final numbers, but you also defeated that the Cisco kid earlier this year. What was that, 62-38, something like that? I mean, it's the voters have spoken, and I really hope that the rest of the commissioners' court, and by that I mean Judge Massengill and Commissioner Jack Wilson, I hope that they don't try to continue to waste the taxpayer time and resources by going after you in a political capacity using the strong arm of government. I hope that they'll put all that to an end now.
I do too.
Well, Commissioner Eagle, is there anything else you'd like to say? I know you have other places to be and other, I guess, patrons that helped you out and, went out there and knocked and block walked and everything for you.
Well, I do want to put in a little plug here. The same people that claim they're Republicans voting for my Democrat opponent are the same people that hate you. They hate Blue Shark. And you can look at the results of my election just in my precinct, and I really appreciate Blue Shark forcing some issues, bringing out the truth. If people don't want to look at the other side of a coin, that's their issue, but it looks to me like that you're making a difference here. And the ones that just want to hate another viewpoint coming out there and don't want to listen to it, that's the problem in this country that needs to be addressed. It's a problem in this county that we need to fix, because I should be able, for instance, to sit up there on that dais and completely disagree with one of the other members, and we disagree. Put it for a vote, and the vote carries, and we move on. None of this backroom attacks. That should not be happening, and that's what they do. That's what they've been doing, and I know who you are.
Well, I appreciate you coming in, Commissioner Eagle, and thanks for what you're doing in January. Hopefully, we'll see what's coming out from this new court, and hopefully it'll be a good conservative court. But thank you for running. Thank you for stepping up.
Thank you.
So, Nate, what do you think? We don't have any other new numbers in. Do you have anything on the Brian Birdwell Senator Birdwell race?
Yeah, he did increase his lead a couple points, and looking at how the Austin American Statement's pulling their numbers, they, I guess, have an intern somewhere, going through the different county websites. They hadn't even pulled in the Hood County numbers yet, but he's sitting at 71 to 28.
Okay, that's good. That's a little bit better, I think, the way they redid the districting. So
when I saw that 30%, I was like, man, that's
hopefully he can stay above that 70%. So for the district that he's in, right?
And for a libertarian, if he would have actually cleared that by the end of the night, that would have been a feat in and of itself, because libertarians, I mean, come on, they're a joke. You got the guy has the boot on his head, and their convention's always a mess. So
yeah, and normally, we can go talk about this guy, and we don't know him, but there's no signs that that are put out. It's just a name on a ballot, and they pay their money, and there they go. But when you're in a different, like us, you can put out a sign. Grant Wood or Harold Granite can put out a sign. They're going to get 20%. So it's just a matter of hopefully Brian Birdwell will be above 70%, and with the districts moved. And I think he was even on. Did he chair that committee? Maybe redistricting.
I don't know if he chaired that committee, but he was the pro tem of the state senate. So
yeah, so hopefully he's got a good district and solid and safe, and it looks like he is. And there was no Democrat; it's just a libertarian. But
I have to laugh when we bring up the libertarians.
I know,
because it's bless their hearts. I just don't think a lot of them really get it.
But once again, we've got 48,669 registered voters in Hood County. 42.5% basically have voted. That's 20,661. We're still waiting, maybe on. Are you guessing 5,000 to 8,000 more? Maybe 6,000?
Yeah, probably about 6, maybe 7.
What do you think, Dave?
Con's reported yet.
Yeah, I worked out at the Baptist Church out on 51, and that polling place ended with about 1,000 people voting at that one location, and I'm pretty sure the annex got real close to 2,000.
Yeah, there's
so that's just 2 out of the 9. Mm-hmm. So we could very well see a 26 to 28,000 total count.
So we've got a little bit more to go. Statistically, I don't think anything's really going to change. Everybody's too far away for that. If we were within, if we were at a 49-51 or something maybe, but everybody's pretty close to having the races taken care of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if nothing else, I'll probably just run up some more numbers against Grant Wood. That would feel pretty good to get that percentage up to 77, 78%, which is where it should be in this county.
Well, and, you weren't in here for this, but I do want to say it to where I know you hear it. Anybody that claims to be a Republican that supported the Beto-loving Black Lives Matter activist that was your opponent, they have lost all credibility when it comes to Republican primary elections, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree, and I think one of them's getting beat tonight in the mayor's race.
And that is Toby Mobley. We
Toby Mobley. It's Tony Mobley.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. We did mention him earlier, and Dave, you weren't in here for this, but my attorney emailed me and said, "Hey, I got this lease for you. We're able to actually double the square footage of the lease you have in Tony Mobley's big head." So.
Well, and I knew you were putting together a construction project up there, but I hope it works out.
Oh, thanks.
Well, we talked about Justin Deaver, and you brought that up, and somebody commented. I don't know if it's true or not, but somebody commented on YouTube that James Deaver is Justin. It's his dad.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So good for him.
Yeah.
So looks like Justin Deaver will be on the school board, and hopefully their school board in Toller will be conservative also. So good for, I bet James is proud, so good for him.
Yeah.
So Dave, you got anything you want to part with?
No, I'm tired.
You're tired work, yeah.
Had a good day. Had a terrible commissioner's court today, and they're doing everything they can do. Before, they know what's coming on January the 1st.
You want to give us a rundown real quick?
Well, I'm not going to name names, but for instance, we had a chance to put a member on the water Upper Trinity Groundwater Conservation District. We had one of our directors out of 2 from this county resign effective at last October 20th, left a vacant seat, and we asked for applications to recommend to the district to appoint this person. We had 3 applicants in. One of the applicants, and I don't have anything against any of them, and the one that they put in there, nothing personal, but one of the applicants had been on the board for 12 years before. And when I saw his name, I knew I knew they were going to put him on there, and yet we had 2 other very good candidates to send up to the district. And the district is actually the one who appoints. We just send them the recommended person we would like to see him. And I suggested during the meeting, why don't we send them two of the applicants, the one they wanted and the one that we wanted, and let the board decide. Well, of course, that wasn't going to go. And so they strong-armed that deal through. And then the judge did a long demagogued speech on the sheriff's salaries and the deputy salaries, which I didn't argue against. I think we need to pay our law enforcement what they need to be paid, and they need to be paid a salary wage that is commensurate with their experience and with this area of the country and with the market. I have no problem with that at all. But the judge really grandstanded on that deal.
Of course.
And it was just a typical Massengill grandstanding demagoguery, and I'm getting so tired of watching that.
Well, we real quick here, we don't have any updates, so we are talking to Commissioner Dave Eagle. We're waiting on the next update coming up to give you guys the vote totals, but we are going to do a show coming up on just that, because most people, and I would say probably 90% of the people, do want the deputies to get paid.
Absolutely.
What they're worth, what they can get paid, what they can live on. Not necessarily the higher echelon, but the street deputies and a good starting pay. To me, the problem lies in the fact that, and people can disagree all they want, but the sheriff is in charge of that department, and the sheriff should have been asking for raises for probably 5 years at least, if not more. And I know the Commissioner's Court has given raise in the past years, but it's up to the sheriff. And when I see somebody standing in for the sheriff at one of your last courts, not this one, but the prior one, and speaking, and I don't know if he's a lieutenant or a captain, but that's that elected official's responsibility to go up there and speak in front of the people, not a lieutenant, not a captain, but the sheriff. And to me, being in law enforcement for 30 years, a lot of that lays on the feet of the sheriff to take care of his guys, his men and women. And if you have to scream to the rooftops every year during budget hearings, then that's what you do. And I didn't hear a lot of those screams, but I did see some of the commissioner courts giving him money for deputies. Where that money went, we don't know. So I think most of the people are on the same page as far as the deputy salaries. It's just, as a commissioner's court, you don't want to take over somebody's elected office, whether it's the sheriff, whether it's the county clerk, whether it's the district clerk, whatever, a constable. They're all elected to do their job. They have to do their job before you do yours when it comes to the budget. Mm-hmm. So I kind of know where you stand, and I think everybody on that court, you, the judge, everybody wants the deputies to get paid, but let's get somebody in there fighting year after year for his salaries.
And, back to Massengill's grandstanding, the irony doesn't escape me that his grandstanding took place, what was it, a month after the budget had been passed? they, I think, saw the political opportunity to go after Katie and to go after you because they are, not exactly fans of y'all's, putting it lightly. And, that's what they chose to do. And, I'm glad that the voters saw through that and they didn't take the bait.
Yeah, me too.
Well, thanks for coming in, Dave. We know you got places to go, and we'll just keep, here watching the numbers. And hopefully we're supposed to get the mayor on the line, and maybe we can here in a little bit. And we might throw that graphic up real quick to try to get him on the phone. And we've got, looks like 83.33% of the precincts reporting. And the number's 20,661 ballots that have been cast. And as soon as we can, and hopefully with the mayor, we'll be back in just a minute or so.
Man, it's all right. Hey,
Okay.
Jim, can you hear me?
Here we go. We got we're back up, guys, and hang on, Jim. Can you hear me?
Here.
Jim, I got you live. Got you on the phone. I know you're at
Jared.
Barron. Hang on one creek. I think he's at Barron's Creek. Katie in the control
Hello,
room.
Jim Jared. Who's there? Hi.
We're trying to
Hi,
get
it's
we're
Jim
trying to
Jared.
get Jim. Yeah, he can't hear. He can't
Hi,
hear
it's
us.
Jim Jared. I can hear you.
Oh, so he can hear us.
All right, Jim, can you
Hello.
hear me?
Jim Jared here.
I think there's a lag. Jim, can you hear
Hello.
me? All right, we're having some problems. Kate, can you
Hi,
get with
it's
him?
Jim Jared. Do you want me to call back in?
Yes.
Katie? Okay.
We'll have Jim call back in control room and try to get that.
In the meantime, did we have any more numbers come in?
No,
Okay.
I don't have anything. We're still staying at 20,661, and we're still there at 83%.
I am here.
So, all right, Mayor Jarrett, can you
I
hear
can hear
me?
you. Great.
Can you hear Mike?
Can you hear me? Are you not hearing me? I called Nate. He could hear me.
Well, that was
I can hear you.
that was earlier. He means he called
No.
me on the phone.
Well, I just gave you.
Jim, can you hear me?
So
This is Nate. If you
Yes,
can hear
I
me,
can hear Nate.
Okay, can you hear Mike?
I guess
I thought I heard
I guess he
second
can
voice.
only hear.
Yeah, why don't
me.
you do it? All right.
Okay. Hey, Jim, this is Nate here. Thanks for coming on with us. Congratulations on what looks like a back-to-back victory for Mayor Granbury. Congratulations, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I do appreciate the congratulations, but we still have about 20% of the vote out, and you know me. I'm gonna look at the numbers. I'm gonna be cautious. I'll pop the champagne when we are sure we should pop the champagne.
And that's
So-
one thing that I really like about you. I'll be a little more fast and loose with the numbers and go ahead and declare it. But I do really appreciate that you dive so far into the numbers. In fact, a little funny story. Tell us about that time you had a $20 check to a psychic written by the city of Granbury you found.
Well, it wasn't $20. I really hate it when people exaggerate like that. It was only $16.
My apologies,
Yes.
Mr. Jarrett.
Well, let's be fair. We found out exactly why that check was written, and it was because we owed a refund to a company that had gone out of business. But it's
Gotcha.
there. It's in our check register if you want to see it.
And I remember when you brought that up and you found it. So this election cycle, it's got to feel good. You know, last cycle, I remember when you were giving your speech after every last number came in, you said, hey, I want to increase these numbers. You know, right now, or at the time you were at 50, low 50s, was it 51, 52, 53? And now it looks like you're inching up closer to 60%. How good does it feel knowing that you've made a positive impression and won people over to your side?
Well, it's not just that it was close to 60%. Look at the total numbers. Last time, literally, I was elected by 10% of the people who could have voted. That's not the case this time.
Not at all.
There's an absolute interest in the kind of government and the kind of presentation that I make for and to the city. So I'm delighted.
Mayor, can you hear me? This is Mike.
Yes, I can.
Okay, well, I want to congratulate you. And if you do the math, the rest of the 16.5% would have to go 100% for your opponent, which is not going to happen statistically. So, and I understand, your reservations, and that's good. We had you on the program about a month ago, and we were talking about all the positive changes going on here in Granbury. And I appreciate what you've done and what you're doing for the city of Granbury moving forward. And I think the citizens do, and they like that positive change for Granbury. And we sure hope you continue to do that with the city manager and the rest of the council.
Well, that is absolutely the intent. The city staff is they're outstanding. There's no question about it. And I think that many times that we take, as citizens, we take so much just as expected. But every bit of what gets delivered, which is expected, requires effort, planning, equipment, tools, programming. It's a team effort, and it doesn't happen overnight. And this is a good group. I think we need to continue to work with this good group. And I believe that we're going to just continue to grow the Granbury opportunities and what I call the Granbury feel. It feels like Granbury when you came in.
Right. Great place to live.
It's a great place to live.
Yeah. Well, I know you're busy, Mayor, and thanks for getting on the phone. And you ever need anything or need to get the word out, let us know what you're doing. Please don't hesitate to give us a call and get on the program. Congratulations.
I appreciate you guys calling and for what you do.
Thank you.
Let's
Take
make,
care.
Granbury better yet.
Amen. Take care, Mayor.
You bet. Bye.
Bye. So we had a quick call in with the mayor. I know he's not ready to call it himself, and as a candidate, I don't blame him.
He is a numbers guy.
Yeah. So,
and, that's he wants to wait until every vote's been counted. I do respect that about him.
Right. And you're looking at, I think, about 36-26 in, as far as votes in that mayoral race. And let's scroll to it. Yeah, 36-26. And, you're looking at 83% of the vote in, almost 84, so 16%. Like I said, his opponent would have to get every single vote, and then I think he'd still be short by about 80 votes. So technically, they're not going to do that. But so we're going to keep the same mayor, and I think it's a good thing. And I think with Eddie Rodriguez at 72%, and he had a lot from several camps. So I hope he steps up and takes more of a leadership role with Mayor Jarrett and the city manager and some of the staff.
I absolutely hope Eddie does. And I understand the reservation when a man wins his race by 20-something votes like he did 3 years ago. I understand being a little hesitant to really get out there, but this is a clear mandate today for Eddie and Jim.
Right. And, we're going to recap this, and we've got, like I said, 83% of the vote in, 83.3 it looks like. And I don't see any changes. Do you, Nate, coming up for anybody, especially in the school board races? Too many votes in that one. There's 4,000 in Townsend vote, another 4,000 for Wimberley, Karen Lowry. There's 2,500. There's no way that 16% is going to come in there.
No,
even at 15,000 votes, it would be hard just to catch up.
And
so
I'll tell you just real quick about the school board. And again, this is something that I think is common amongst conservatives and not so much common amongst the moderates and liberals in town. Now that the elections are over and the voters have spoken, we all have to work together. The school still has a capacity issue that we have to address. The school still has some books left over in the library that we have to address. And, we'll probably see another bond. And I just really hope that the school district will listen to people outside of their own echo chamber like they clearly did last time. And,
Right.
you know, get some more people involved because, you know, like it or not, there's enough people around here that don't want one high school and one middle school. The people don't want, you know, the number of sports teams being cut down, you know. So, again, congratulations to all the candidates that won their elections, and thank you to everyone that ran this time, because it takes a lot. You know, I tell people all the time, there's nothing that an individual can do that I have found in life. There's nothing anyone can do to prepare themselves for the turmoil and the aches and pains and the growth, the personal growth that
Ups and
occurs
downs, everything. Yeah.
when you're running for office. So, you know, even the ones I was kind of poking fun at earlier, you know, thank you for running for office.
Right. And I want to thank everybody, and we've got about 16% left. So I think it's pretty much called the way it is now, unless, you know, something just astronomically, statistically just has, you know, an undue phenomenon go on. But those are going to be your people, and we can go down the list again. Katie Lang won handily. Commissioner for County Clerk, Commissioner Precinct 4, Dave Eagle. Trustee Place 5, Billy Wimberly. Trustee Place 6, Barbara Townsend. Trustee Place 7 will be Karen Lowry. The Mayor of Granbury, Jim Jarrett. City Council, Eddie Rodriguez. And I want to thank everybody for running, just like we've said all night long. And I want to thank all our followers on YouTube going live for the first time. And maybe we'll start doing some of our shows live and have people comment. But we appreciate you guys staying tuned and watching the results with us. And there's, in my opinion, probably, if you want to look at it yourself later on into the night, but it's pushing 950, so I think we're pretty well done. Nate, thanks for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, you guys take care, and thanks again for everybody that went out to vote, and for all the candidates, thank you and good night.